So there's a particular welcome for all the newcomers. What we hope to do here at the Black Hole today is to engage your minds, the minds of those who will be talking to us, speaking to us, on an issue that is, well, not very far ahead, the colonization of Mars. This is going to be the first planet that humans will be able to live on. And it's not so far ahead, it's maybe 100, maybe 150 years from now. We are going to give you more power than any dictator on earth has, or any emperor or king has had in the past. You see, dictators, they inherit a society where they can set the rules, but they don't make that society. And we are going to let the young folks from the different schools who've come here to exercise their imagination. And so, what we are going to have is an adult debate. It's not going to be a debate for kids. In fact, it won't be a debate at all. It will be now for you to exercise your imagination to tell us how you will create a model society, a model colony on Mars, one that is not to make the same kind of mistakes that we have made on Earth. You know, we've had wars and plagues, and we've killed each other, we've not learned to live with each other properly. But now you are going to be social engineers. So you will need to have studied the history of Earth, the evolution of societies on Earth, and then use your wisdom to create something that so far does not exist but will exist one day. So, welcome to this exercise. The moderators for today will be Shahryar Khan and Misha Manahil, and there will be three judges, one myself, Dr. Ravesh Nadeem, and Dr. Abdul Hamid Nair. So the rules of the game will be set by Shahryar and by Misha, and so come and take over and tell everybody here what they're supposed to do.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. I would like to give you a very warm welcome to the Black Hole. I'm so happy that you all came here. I'm Misha Manahil. I am your moderator alongside Mr. Shahryar, and I would first like to call upon the participants onto the stage. So we have Abdur Rahman Talha and Sadan Talha. So they're from Behria, Anchorage. So if we'd all like to give them a very warm welcome. Then we have Muhammad Rahman Khatak and Sarmat Sadiq from LGS. Then we have Shahzeb Adil and Emil Khanzada. One of the participants is yet to come. BMI and St. Mary's. Zara Hussain and Iman Saeed from BKC. Abir Rizwan and Ramiz Kadir from Modern Age. And finally, we have Ayan Beg and Haroon Safir from LGS and Beacon House. So I would like you all to start, and I'll give the mic to Mr. Shahryar.
Hello everyone, I am Shahryar. Let me explain the rules of the house today for both mainly for the participants and also for the audience. So first of all, we will start with the opening statement, and the time limit for that for all of you is 3 minutes, as you all know. Okay, so we will time it, and you have to complete your opening statement within those 3 minutes, and that applies also to the closing statement. You must ensure respectful conduct at all times. Okay, no underhanded or ad hominem remarks will be tolerated at all. Engage with each other in a respectful manner. Okay. The moderators will have the authority to redirect discussions if the topic starts to you go in off in another direction. So we will try to focus the debate. Okay, so we reserve the right to redirect the discussion. And if you want to speak, when we will open the discussion for the entire panel, if you want to speak, then you will first raise your hand, and then the moderator will allow you to take the mic and then speak in the mic. Okay, so there will be no cross discussion at all, because cross talk at all, because that will interfere with the flow of the debate. So first, the moderator will permit you to speak. So keep your arguments precise and to the point. Okay, that should go without saying. Uh, in the end, we will also take some questions from the audience if the audience wants to participate. So you will have to respond to some of the audience questions as well in the end. And you can take notes during the debate. If you want pages or a pen, then we can provide them for you. Okay, if any one of you wants. So finally, let me tell you, reiterate the judgment criteria, which was also mentioned in the website as well in the description, but just for clarity. So first of all, we will judge you on your organization of your arguments and the clarity of your arguments. Okay. Secondly, the strength of the reasons you give for your arguments, uh, your evidence, factual evidence, and use of examples. The more factual it is, and the better. Your presentation style, your tone of voice, use of gestures, and level of enthusiasm, respectful engagement, as I iterated earlier, and finally, the creativity and originality of the solutions you present for the problems. Okay, so that will also be taken into account. So I wish you all good luck for the debate. So first of all, we will begin the opening statements, and we will begin with team number one, who will give their opening statement for the debate. Abdurrahman and Sadan. So one member from each group will give the opening statement. Okay, you can start.
So the first question was, how do we take participants from Earth in the first place? So I believe that due to the fact that cultures across similar regions, neighboring regions, are sometimes quite similar, and their languages too. For example, Chinese and Japanese, sometimes they can understand each other during their debates or talks. So I believe since their cultures and personalities are quite similar, and we can only take 100 people, and they are 190 plus countries. So we have to kind of compromise on that. So in that sense, I believe we take regional people while saving some seats for some ethnicities or some religions. We can try to represent humanity. Secondly, there was a question of whether they should be loyal or not. I believe it fully comes down to them, whether they want to be or not. They do not want to be loyal. I believe, it reduces pressure on them. It makes them feel more free, that they have more freedom to do well whatever they want, as long as they can expand their empire, expand humanity's empire on Mars. Thirdly, there was whether religion should be allowed or not. I believe it absolutely should. One's faith in God allows him to persevere through hardships while believing that his God he or she will help him in his journey. Third, there was the distribution of races. Now, like I said before, the participants will be chosen by region. So I believe this was kind of determine what the distribution of races will be. Fourth, there was the question of how people will be birthed onto the planet, whether it'll be through natural means or on a pod. I believe it should be in a pod to allow for the people to be able to work more. As during pregnancy, people cannot do so much work. So if we were to remove that burden, they will be able to do more work.
Yes.
I think you need to specify the question questions that they have to respond to. That should have been set out at the outset.
So I mentioned that I told them that they will have to encompass all of the 7 questions in their opening statement.
The audience needs to know those questions.
Okay. Okay. So for the audience, let me first state the questions that are under debate right now. Okay. So you know the background which Dr. Parvez Hudbo explained in the beginning in the introduction that humans are trying to establish a colony on Mars. So the questions under debate are, first of all, from which countries should the pioneers be chosen and how many from each? Will the pioneers be expected to be loyal to their parent country? Second, what should be the distribution of races? What should be the language of communication? One language or many? Thirdly, will the colony have a single religion, many religions, no religion? Will religion be forbidden? Fourth, will the leader be elected or appointed? Will political parties be allowed? Fifth, group identity, commonality of race, religion, ethnicity, language has both pluses and minuses on Earth. How will this work out in the colony and how to deal with it? Will group identity be welcomed or punished? Sixth, what will be the governance structure of the colony? Education, health, dispute resolution. Remember that governments on Earth will have no say in colony matters. And finally, to compensate for natural and accidental death, the colony requires babies be born on Mars. Will a child have a mother and father as on Earth? To free the mother for other work, should the child be born in a special biological unit and belong to the entire colony? So these are the 7 questions that we have to discuss. So the first team has given their introduction. Now moving on to the second team.
See, can I begin? So for the question, for the first question in this debate is from which? Is it necessary to use the mic?
Don't move your hand.
Okay. So for the first question, for which countries and from what regions will people be chosen from in this debate, and geographically, by virtue of the fact that we were provided 100 people and there's over 200 countries in the world, I don't think it's possible to have a very large diversity in the short term. But by virtue of the fact that we're developing a colony, in the long term we can eventually have diversity. So to ensure as much diversity as humanly possible, we will have one person from each and every country. And this is fair on account of the fact that 200 plus nations are levying a tax, and I assume that the vast majority of the tax, because this wasn't stated explicitly in the preamble, will be equal by all nations. Therefore, every nation has the right for their individual to go in the first 100 people by virtue of the question of diversity. And the thing is that if somebody were to say, let's have proportional representation from countries with regards to population, I don't think that would be fundamentally justified here on account of the fact that in the medium and the long term, this will be eventually possible when the question of survival is eventually answered. So moving on to the question of the distribution of races, what should be the language of communication, one language or many? So the distribution of races, so since there are 100 people and this is an inherent structural problem within the preamble, we can't have a great diversity because there's tens of thousands of difference of ethnicity and different types of races even between skin colors that are the same. So we can ensure as much diversity as humanly possible, but it can't be reflective of the diversity that is representative within the 8 billion people that are alive today. So that is possible in the medium and the long term, but not in the short term right now. So have as many people, as many races as humanly possible. What is the language of communication? Fundamentally irrelevant in the sense that you just want one language that everybody understands, whether this is English, Urdu, Farsi, or any language that has a lot of scientific instruction in it so that communication is easily possible and effectively possible between all these 100 people. But we would promote lots and lots of languages over here in the long term, since you're going to have lots and lots of people. Will the colony have a single religion? Will the colony have no religion? I don't think there should be sovereign religion in the colony on account of the fact that states have no right to dictate what religion is correct or what religion is incorrect. I believe in the ontological argument in life, personally, that the existence of God is something that exists in conception as well, right? And every man has the right to conceive God as he feels free to do so. So there will be no sovereign religion, but it should be independently allowed so that these people can fulfill the needs of their souls. Lots of psychology shows that religion is essential to the human condition. The question of whether the leader will be selected or appointed. The thing is, initially, the question of survival is the most important. These 100 people survive. So initially, we want selection. Selection is very important, and then over time we can evolve into a parliamentary democracy. So in the short term, we will have. short and medium and long term. Group identity. Group identity is inevitable. We want to push group identity that has positive externalities. We want to ensure that negative groups aren't created, and I will explain to you this further in the discussion. The governance structure, an evolving governance structure that focuses on survival first, and then that will eventually move on to parliamentary democracy. This is evidenced by the vast majority of scientific studies and evidence that we have that is the best form and most representative form of government. The existence of families. I think families must exist by virtue of the psychological evidence that we provided.
Okay, your time is up. Your time is up.
Okay.
Next team. Yes, start.
Ladies and gentlemen, we gather here today.
Keep your mic close.
To discuss a very crucial situation at hand, which is to craft a model colony on Mars. Now, our need for this debate is due to there being overpopulation on the planet Earth.
करीब करो, mic करीब.
The other one may be working.
On करो. चलो चलो. Start करो. शुरू से कर लो start.
Ladies and gentlemen, we gather here today to discuss a very crucial situation at hand, which is to craft a model colony on Mars. Now, our need for this debate is due to there being overpopulation on the planet Earth. Building a new colony on Mars will not only help to continue living their lives without being left homeless, but will further help us to move to the rest of the solar system and even further beyond. Now, as there are more than 8 billion people on Earth as of now, it is possible that by 100 years this number will multiply. Having no space for people, quicker actions are needed, and as chief social architect of this colony project, we will call for 100 people to be sent to Mars. Not only will they have a chance to experience life on another planet as a whole, but now as their country's government has no say on what the pioneers do, they have a free will to live under their own government on the planet. In our debate, we will be discussing which countries the people will be chosen from and how many from each. And whether or not they are expected to be loyal to their parent country after deciding to move to another planet, what the distribution of races would be, and the language of communication, whether or not a leader would be appointed or elected. We will be discussing the matter of religion and group identity, and if any child is born, whether or not he belongs to the colony or will have parents. We look forward to a fruitful debate. Thank you.
Okay, next team, please start your opening statement.
If given the opportunity, majority of the humanity would leave due to all the conflicts here on Earth. But the real question is, would these problems totally not occur on Mars? At the end of the day, we're all humans. Our beliefs and practices stem from our ethnicity, religion, life experiences, and most importantly, the kind of society we've been exposed to, whether consciously or subconsciously. Our experiences will affect our daily interactions. We would try to apply those same experiences on Mars, and we can only assume that would only replicate the events of Earth. Now, imagine you're a leader of a Martian society. Your society is the hope for humanity. You must ensure that Martians are not taken advantage of. I, as a leader, would want technical wonkers, people with problem-solving skills, people who are tolerant of others, people who respect others' opinions and understands others' perspectives. I want people that can logically present their arguments, rationalize, and does not take personal offense. Only these kind of individuals would avoid conflict, actively take responsibility of our society, and would work towards a tightly knit community. As a leader, I would establish a society of equals, a society that treats each other regardless of their ethnicity, religion, and beliefs. Everyone would be free to express their thoughts and democratically elect a leader based on a carefully decided criteria. It will be a community that upholds responsibility and supports each other. We would establish a society that has the intellectual ability to reach a consensus, and it will work towards its success.
Okay, team from Modern Age, please give your opening statement.
Ladies and gentlemen, today I am here with a vision that extends beyond our planet, a vision of crafting a model colony on Mars. In pursuit of model colony, we will initiate our first step, that is choosing pioneers from all countries in the world. From most underdeveloped countries to the most developed countries, we will give them all a fair chance to show their abilities and actually prove them. One person from each country would be selected. That will make them total of 195 candidates who will undergo some testing under certain circumstances to see who is deserving, and after that, 80 people will move forward. From the astronomical and space sites, we will take 19 people in total out of 50 applying and finalize them. These 99 people will be trained under the supervision of project head, that would be me, for crisis management, survival, ethics, intelligence, problem solving, language, cooperation, and teamwork. This training will be for 1 year. So there will be no more, and they will no more belong to their parent country. Our one of main concern is language, as we know that language is not just a source of communication, it's more a representation of our culture and everything. So we will create a new language, as we have a lot of time till now, for like 150 years and something. And in case of any problem of that language, we will use the translation devices. Freedom of religion, of course, would be given, but the rule would be strictly followed that your religion should not harm anyone or have negative effects on the other people. Education will be the cornerstone for our Martian society, and racism and group identity will be highly prohibited, as we all know that it has been one of the main reason of disturbance on Earth already. As for the leader, there would be a total of 3 leaders. One, the head, as for me, who will stay at the top and who has in charge of this whole project. Then the leader who will handle the judiciary and peace and environment. And the third one who would be more of a supervisor and handle everyday issues of colony and resolve conflicts. The leaders would be selected on basis of their training held on Earth, and selection of head would be through democracy, and we will have a flexible government. Last but not the least, we have to spread our colony and population on Mars, and for that, the woman would be given freedom. Either she wants to give birth naturally or through in vitro fertilization or through special biological units. Also, we have to be kind to Mars and make it our next home. I hope this endeavor represent not just a leap in science, but a giant stride for humanity, showcasing our ability to learn, adapt, and thrive beyond our Earth. Let's embark on this cosmic journey, shaping a model colony on Mars that echoes the spirit of human exploration. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Team number 6, please start.
My name's Ayan, and as for creating a colony on Mars, ever since the agricultural evolution, we have seen that a colony, a state, or a community needs a set of reforms. That is a constitution of a state, a society, or a colony. And we have seen great examples of constitutions on Earth, such as the Code of Hammurabi, the US Constitution, but we have also seen disastrous constitutions in the history of world, as for the Constitution of Pakistan and as for the constitutions of Middle Eastern countries. And so the constitution of a colony is to be created very critically and in a very constructive manner. And a constitution includes all types of things. It includes culture diversity, it includes how a religion must be practiced in a state, it includes how you carry out these practices. And as for religion is a sentimental based thing, and religions lead to sentimental populism, and due to which we see rise of leaders like Jim Jones and Imran Khan as well. And so I believe that religion is a matter that should be personal and that should not be portrayed to the public, because if portrayed to public, it leads to extreme level of extremism. As for the pioneers on Mars, the United Nations, being a neutral body on Earth, should have merit-based examinations which are open to all people of a country and which can be given by all people. And so the United Nations can carry out a merit-based examinations set up by a committee under the United Nations, which would be looking forward to having a rationalist, individualist, and a non-biased person from every country. As for the racism, as per the critical race theory, is not something that belongs in a person's bias. However, it belongs in a system. And racism in a system means that your political systems are biased towards one race or another. And so, according to the critical race theory, we believe that a department should not be very much biased towards one race or another. And so we should have race consciousness, which means that if a person is from another race than the other person, they should be
30
conscious.
seconds, you have 30 seconds.
They should be conscious of their own race, and so they should be able to stand up for their rights and how to make their voice be accountable for what they want. And as for the culture diversity, if you're sending pioneers from several countries, there would be a larger culture diversity, and the languages would also be larger. So what we could do to solve this is that we could have 2 or 3 official languages which are the most spoken in the world.
Okay. Time is up. Time is up. We can discuss this in the main discussion. Okay, so we heard the opening statements from all teams. Very, very interesting proposals by all of you. So let's go step by step through the 7 questions. Let's first of all discuss the selection itself, because that is the initial point. That is the initial, the most important part of the whole project. How will we select? So, according to the background, the background of the debate, we are only supposed to select 100 people for the colony, but we have 195 countries. And presumably, all of the member states, according to the background, are contributing via tax to the establishment of the colony. So, how will we select among all of the countries? What are your proposals for that? What are your suggestions? Yes, please.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Harun Sifi. First of all, for this selection, we need to understand that there shall be accountability of either the country is giving the tax or not. We're supposed to believe in how the countries are giving the tax, but we can only choose a person from a state once the tax has been transmitted to the UN body. Considering the fact that this project will be highly economical and we need a specific budget, we cannot rely on countries agreeing that they will pay their tax. We need to understand that if they pay their tax, their pioneer may be sent. Next, we need to understand that everyone here is talking about how pregnancy is going to work, how children are going to work, but no one's talking how there should be a quota system that should work with males and females itself. Not only a selection process, but a proper test that gives a quota system to each state, sending their males and females on a 50% level. Because we need to understand that considering the fact that these individual pioneers won't come back to the earth, we need to understand that there shall be a lifelong system. So we need males and females in it. Next, we need to understand that it's not an election process, it's a selection process. A selection process basically means you have a proper selection test, but this selection test would be specialized in how space physics works, how the individual testimonies of the specific person works, how things work. When we consider the fact that we have to have races, we disregard the fact that we also need specialized people. Not because just we need a race to be involved in Mars doesn't mean we can put out unspecialized people.
Okay, point taken. Does anyone want to respond? No, you, team number 4.
Okay, so while I agree that there should be a system and that only the tax-paying countries should be their pioneers should be sent, I don't see how a quota system would be efficient, because this is just going to introduce more racism. Quota system is never seen as something that is fair, because you are giving positions to specific people. At the end of the day, the pioneer should be based on merits. You cannot send someone that does not have technical skills or problem-solving skills. At the end of the day, you need people that can work towards a better society. They have the intellectual ability. If you go on a quota system and not establish these criteria, you're just going to end up in another disaster. So with that point ahead, I think another thing we should mention is that even now we have a Mars Academy in USA that is training, that has immersive in-person analog astronaut training for people. So keeping that in mind, I think all of these pioneers should be sent into such analog training so that they can truly experience what they are going to go through. And then they can be given the option whether they truly want to go through this or not. And this will allow the people to not only contemplate what the future they want, but it will also allow them to truly prepare mentally and physically for what they need to do. Thank you.
Yes, the training will come afterwards, but my question was how will each country nominate? That's a question, and when each country nominates one person, for example, the first question is how will each country select one person from their entire geography, because countries are huge. And secondly, if each country contributes one person, nominates one person, then how will the UN select 100 out of those almost 200 candidates? Yes.
When you discuss that we should take people upon merit, we have to also consider that the fact that some countries are poor. Not because they choose to be poor, because they have been robbed by other countries. For example, UK. When it was expanding its empire, it took resources from other countries. It started opium wars with China. It took all the gold resources and kind of enslaved the people of India to do work. So they weren't. It's not that their fault that they're poor. So we should also take these people in mind. And if we only take people from merit, then people with rich countries who have better educational system, whose people are better experienced, only these people will be going. So if we take people by region, we can sort of eliminate these factors. After we have taken them, we will get them sufficient training, sufficient diet, so that they may recover from their bad experiences.
Okay, team number 5, modern age. Please.
So I think that, as you've said, as you have asked, that how the country is going to choose that one person. I believe that in every country, either it's everyone has that one person who is, on the top of the list, and everyone knows that person, that they're highly intelligent, and they have very good survival instincts and ethics and everything. So for that, one person from each country would be selected, and now we have a total of 195 candidates who want to go on Mars. And this is 195 is actually also a very hard, selection, because in 2015 there was an article that concluded that when they said that they want to send people on Mars, and 200 people, only one state from US registered themselves. So it's already a very hard selection. So I prefer the idea of basically testing them through some, test of under certain circumstances that they're going to face already on the Mars for hostile environment. For example, the survival and the intelligence, and how they're going to basically deal with everything, and how willing they are actually to live there and survive there. That's the main concern of us. So I have proposed 3 stages in total. In the first stage, 195 people will go through these tests, and out of them, 100 people who would prove themselves that they can actually do. Actually, I got this idea because, as you have told me, that I can take the reference of movies. So I got this idea from Divergent and Maze Runner, that they tested those people and see how are they going to respond to everything. Okay. So in the second stage, they will take 100 people, and in the third, the 80 people would be finalized.
Okay, team number 2. Yes.
The thing is, in terms of competence, I feel like because you're only choosing 100 people from throughout the world, it's very easy to find individuals that are highly competent. Me or any team that comes up with a framework for how to select individuals is fundamentally irrelevant, because NASA has been to the moon, China is going to the moon, India is going to the moon. We know how to make astronauts. We want individuals that perform very well under high pressure circumstances. And the reality is, by virtue of the question the moderator asked, he said, how will we ensure diversity? How will we ensure that there is a variety of people? And how will we ensure that what person from which country goes? The thing is, by virtue of the constraint of 100 people going, you can't have a great deal of diversity. There is an inherent compromise over here. You want the most competent possible individuals, and inevitably this will develop into a society. Look at how human beings were first hunter-gatherers, and eventually we moved into democratic systems. The thing is, at the end of the day, we can find meritocratic individuals, and we know the ingredients of how to make a very good astronaut, and how to make very competent individuals who perform well under pressure. So whether or not what they say or what I say is irrelevant, because there's lots and lots of experts who have studied this for decades. Our opinions are of no value. How are you going to select individuals? Lots and lots of space bodies throughout the world. India has a space organization. Pakistan has one. Maybe they might not be the best in the world, but we can't ensure diversity right now. We want the best possible odds for survival while ensuring one person from every country goes. Scientific bodies can nominate these people. It's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be the nation state. So the thing is, there's an inherent compromise in the question. So the quality of the question, I don't think, can be accurately answered by virtue of the constraints that we have. Thank you.
Okay, that was a good point. But another point I will put forth is that we need diversity because do you know about the concept of genetic diversity? There is a reason why when cousins marry each other, there is a higher probability that their offspring have some kind of abnormality. So since we are only sending 100 people to Mars, we also have to ensure the genetic pool is diverse enough so that there are no abnormalities. The chances of abnormalities is minimized.
Oh, we can
so that is also
ensure this,
why,
moderator. Yes. On account of the fact that they're from 100 different countries and 100 different people of different genetic races, I think this is easily ensured. You can have a biologist just test all of them.
Okay, so for that reason we will have to have some diversity of races as well, because the European countries, there are many countries in Europe, and if you only select the best individual from each country, he or she will most likely be Caucasian, for example, because they are
not necessarily, Mr. Shariar. I beg to disagree. You do see the nations are poor, right? Pakistan is a poor nation, but on account of the fact that we have 250 million people here, we're likely to find somebody very competent, because the populations are so vast. Even in very poor nations like the DRC, you can find a very competent individual on account of the fact that it takes fewer resources to train them. They might not have large structural organizations that are very competent, but you can find one person with certainty that are very competent from every single nation in the world. And I can say with this with certainty of fact.
Okay, team number 6. Team number 6.
What everybody here is forgetting is that the UN recognized countries also include many small, minute islands that are very similar to each other in genetic disposition as well as for the cultures and diversities. So what we need to realize is that the islands of Africa or the islands of Europe that have the same culture diversities, we could have one pioneer from those kind of countries or islands, and as for the bigger countries, we could have one pioneer from every big country such as the NATO countries and the Middle Eastern countries to have a cultural diversity. As for the merit-based exams, we could have a UN-based committee, which could be the UNMC, the United Nations Mars Colonization Committee, which could be looking forward for a rationalist, individualist person, so that if he goes to Mars, he wouldn't have any biasness and would be thinking rationally for all the matters. And I would like to add on to it that if they are to form a government, the 100 pioneers are the only available person on Mars which would be forming a government, and so we could set up a parliamentary form of government like oligarchical democracy, which was proposed by Socrates as well. So what we could have is we could have the 100 pioneers form a cabinet, and then we could have a election-based process within that cabinet.
That's a separate question. You are talking about the appointment of the leader among them. That's a different question. I'm not on that point yet. But lastly, before moving on to the second point, we will have what the opinion of team number 3's opinion on this point. Then we'll move on to the second point.
I've seen that teams over here come and say that there should be a testing process for the selection of the people that will go on Mars. We should keep in mind that if 195 countries are being taken into consideration, every country will at least present at least 2 candidates for their selection who will go through the testing process. Now, as the funding is being done by the tax quota that is being set by the United Nations, we should still take in consideration that the test is going to be a 50% mission on Mars, a 50% test. We should take in consideration that this is going to be very costly and it's gonna take a lot of money. And since one of the team here suggested that we should also take in consideration the poor countries who cannot afford the space programs, I need to point out that that this mission is only going to be a one. This mission is only going to be a one shot, so we cannot take a risk in selecting members from the countries that are poor and do not have a space history. Therefore, I suggest that the pioneers should be chosen from the countries that have a space history and have had several missions that related to space. These countries could include the countries like United States and the countries that are Russia and China and the countries of the European Space Agency. That's it.
Okay, so we have lots of points to discuss, so we will have to move on to the second point. But in summary, I guess we can say that like some of you are in favor of a quota, but some of you say that we should only select on the basis of merit because, as you said, it's a one-shot mission and very, very important that we survive the journey as well as the first few years on Mars. So that I think carries more weight. Okay, so let's move on to the second point because we have lots and lots to discuss. So assume that the 100 people have been selected on the basis of merit and some criteria of diversity as well. So assume that 100 people have been selected. So what should be among the 100 people? Assume that the races have been almost like equally distributed as well on the basis of merit as well. But what should be the language of communication among these 100 people? Should they be allowed to speak their own languages? Should there be a diversity of languages to ensure that everyone feels part of the group, or should there be one universal language as well? Yes, team number 1 can start. Mike.
I think there should be multiple languages because if everyone speaks the same language, I think there should be multiple languages since people who speak their native language feel like they're at home. So we have to But for the sake of simplicity, there should also be a universal language, or they should use translators.
Yes, team number 6. ऊपर करो ऊपर करो.
First of all, we need to understand that making a new different language or asking every single entity out there, which is 100 different people, to create a new language or speak in their native language would be a form of miscommunication. The thing we need to understand is we're going to work on democracy on the languages too. We're going to form a committee which will scrutinize what language is most common among different specific individuals, and we'd understand that if a specific language is common among the several individuals, we can take it as the form of communication. Considering the fact that these individuals have to communicate back to Earth, we need to understand there should be a language that's standard enough and not a new language, because if you initiate a new language, first of all, you have to initiate it on Earth back for the communication, and you have to initiate it among the different people and the sectors too. So the thing we can do is a specific scrutinizing committee that should scrutinize these 100 or different people to find a common language which is among them, and understand that this common language shall be set as a standard of formal communication.
Okay, team number 2, please.
So for whatever language it is, it's actually irrelevant. It should be one common language between the 100 people that are going there. Number 2, this question stems from the fact whether or not we'll be able to preserve human language, because diversity of language in and of itself is important. But what the other teams overlook is that all the knowledge that we've gathered as human beings over the last millennia regarding languages will be discarded. We can take that information with us. So you can have a diversity of languages, but one common language between all 100 people. So all the instructional material we have regarding languages and the diversity of languages can still remain with us, because the knowledge is with us.
Okay, team number 4.
Okay, so first of all, as mentioned by my fellow panelist, whatever the common language is between the 100 people selected, that should be the common language. Currently, we speak English as the global language. It only makes sense that we use that as the way to communicate. Thank you. Secondly, as you mentioned, it is really important to preserve our human languages as well, because our language represents more than just a mode of communication. It represents our knowledge, culture, and history. So that means, to ensure that we preserve all of that, we already have people on Earth, but people on Mars can speak their own languages individually to preserve their own history and have a sense of unity. But at the same time, we need to consider that if someone is spending a long time on Mars or in a separate community and they do not have plans on coming back to Earth, they are going to eventually develop their own language or their own mode of communication, whatever that might be. And they're going to eventually also end up building their own culture. So I don't think it's that much of a concern. We will eventually get through this problem once we get there. It's not something that we need specific committees for and waste our resources on.
Okay, next team 2.
Hello, everyone. I think it's very fundamental to understand that most disagreements within human civilizations are based on either power or societal structures. So what the contemporary philosophers argue is that the more agreements you have, the less chance there is to have a disagreement or discrimination based upon the power or social or economic structures you have. So in order to have the best possible, not only mechanism of governance, we should have one common language, because that will give us an agreement. You talk about Pakistan and Bangladesh, right? Fundamentally, understand that a big reason for the separation of Bangladesh was a discrimination they faced by virtue of the fact that they spoke Bengali as their language. If we had a similar language and we wouldn't have enforced Urdu upon the Bengalis, the division of race or ethnicity wouldn't have been there, right? So I think it's important to understand, while everyone can have their own languages, there should be one common language which at least has, which inculcates a sense of unity. We don't want to impose that language, but at least there should be some form of, a mechanism of unity.
Okay, I get your point. We get your point. So I think we can all agree that there should be a universal language of communication, and that should most probably be English to communicate effectively to the people back on Earth and also amongst themselves. But also everyone should be allowed to speak their local languages as well. There should be no restriction on that. So I guess we can move on to the next point. I was saying because there are lots of points to cover. I'm taking into consideration all of them. I'm giving all of them roughly an equal chance. But then there is a flow of the debate as well. Then the middle team might introduce a new point, and then the other team they're wanting to say something else, they might forget their. I will give them a chance because there are many other points as well. I'm dividing them equally. I'm taking that into account. I'm not going to like preferentially select a few teams. So don't worry about that. So I'm going to give all of you a roughly equal chance, but we also have to move forward. So the teams that weren't able to speak on the previous point, I will give them a chance to speak first on the next point. Okay. So the next question that we have on the agenda, so we have decided upon the 100 people, we have gone to Mars, and we have also decided upon a language of communication. But what will we do about religion? Because religion is a very important aspect of everyone's life, and there are a wide diversity of religions in the world, and there will be a wide diversity in the colony as well. So will we enforce a single religion, for example? Will that be suitable? Will we allow a pluralistic society, pluralistic colony? Everyone is allowed to pray their own way and do their own, perform their own customs and traditions, or will there be no religion at all? Will religion be forbidden? What are your opinions as modern age? Team number 5.
Thank you. So my opinion on the freedom is that the freedom of religion should be given, and the reason is that the rule I would suggest for this is that your personal religion should not have impact on others. As we know, we are from Islam, okay? So there are basically we have moved from it, kind of. There are many socially constructed things, and basically when you go into the depth, you find out that this is not that belongs to the Islam and everything. Okay, and people on Mars, they should have their freedom of religion, but it should not impact. Like, for example, I go there and I'm like, okay, you have to do it because in my religion it has to be done like this. So there would be a conflict, and we cannot afford any conflict on the Mars. And that's the thing.
Okay. Yes, team number 3. Team number 3.
We understand the point raised by team number 5. We also agree with them. There would be no religion because we believe that difference leads to criticism.
Team number 5, I guess, said they allowed all religions to be. They didn't say no religion. Okay.
There would, in our opinion, there should be no religion because we believe the fact that difference leads to criticism. Also, single religion will lead to at least 2 people out of the 100 disagreeing, therefore causing a conflict. Also, seeing past examples, even in Pakistan, there have been religious disputes. So we cannot afford any risks on Mars.
Okay, so wouldn't no religion lead to any conflicts? Okay, so team number 1. Team number 1.
While I respect your opinion that there should be no religion, I also believe that the people we are selecting are extremely competent. They know how to handle dispute. They know how to handle conflicts. All religion represents a community. If you exclude that, then what you are essentially doing is you are excluding a community of people who will never get a chance to be recognized in the future of humanity. So we need religion to exist also for the fact that religion helps people persevere through hardships. Their belief in God alone helps them realize that in the future that God will help them, and so it's not always a bad thing.
Team number 6.
Fellow speakers,
keep the mics on. Everyone, please keep your mics on, so don't have to turn it on again.
Fellow speakers, we're missing the fact that religion has a positive effect and a negative effect. And to regulate it, we have to have a proper code of conduct that works along how religion is going to be portrayed among a society like colonizing a society on Mars. We need to understand a specific code of conduct to be raised in which there are specific guidelines on how you can portray your religion and how you cannot go along, and a specific legal action over religious extremism. We need to understand that every time a state or a country has failed to handle religion on its own is a fact of consequence of religious extremism. What we can do is all talk about how there will be a specific code of conduct that will be worked upon specialized people. Secondly, the diplomats, we need to understand the fact that every member that you're choosing is a highly civilized and specialized individual who has passed a test, and a test that includes your moral values, that includes how you're going to manage crisis, that includes how you're equating and how you're going to deal in groups and with other individuals. Considering this fact, we need to understand that a slight code of conduct will just minimize religious extremism as a whole, and we understand that these individuals are merit-based. They have their specific morals. They're educated people and educated
I think
individuals.
religious extremism won't be that much of an issue because we will take care of that during the initial screening.
Exactly.
We won't really be selecting anyone who has any extremist inclinations in the
Exactly.
first place. So the people who go there will be civilized. But the main question is that will everyone be allowed to practice their own religions? It is not that great of an issue if one of them like becomes an extremist over there.
Yes, they would be allowed their religions under the code of conduct. That will give them a boundary of how they can realize it, and a specific code of conduct that can minimize religious extremism as a whole. So
Okay.
yes, they would be allowed.
Okay, does anyone, team number 2, do you have a response to team number 3's claims that though no religion should be allowed at all?
I think religion ought to be allowed on a fundamental philosophical level. So lots of research shows that human beings innately require God to survive. In terms of the fact that the life that we have in front of us, they need larger structured goals beyond this, right? That I am existing right now. Am I existing solely for the purpose of debating over here in the black hole, and then there's nothing here thereafter? If I look at only the USSR, a society without religion, one of the main structural problems of the USSR was a lack of meaning. And that lack of meaning really was problematic, because when people who don't have any meaning, you can give them bad meaning. You want to have good fundamental meaning instead of bad meaning. You can push them into extremism, you can push them into extremist opinions. So I say when you don't allow individuals to have religion, you strip a fundamental part of their morality out of them. And I think that is fundamentally unjustified. They talk about unity, right? Why will having religions cause such extremism or disagreements? Look at all secular nations around the world. They have lots and lots of religions. There's lots and lots of diversity. Doesn't mean there's religious conflict going on. And this question is only applicable in the long term, because the first 100 people that we're choosing are already very vetted. We're probably going to have special forces soldiers or individuals that have been in very high pressure circumstances and their entire lives have been studied. So is religious extremism really a problem? I think in the absence of religion, you take people's meaning away for life. And I think that is unjustified on a fundamental moral level.
Okay, team number 4, please.
I think, as my fellow panelists mentioned, I would agree that we are stripping a layer of humanity if we say that you're not allowed to practice your religion. Because at the end of the day, if you say that you're not allowed to practice your religion, that's just a form of oppression. That's just another. You're just repeating what has already happened on Earth. So why are we going to do that? Mars colony is something supposed to be that's not a repetition of something that has already happened on Earth. And as my fellow panelists mentioned, I think we're forgetting the fact that this is a small group of highly motivated people. These people are there to reason and learn and take each other's perspective and survive. They're the hope for humanity. They're not going to spend their time focusing on what beliefs they have and what religious extremism they have, because they have a higher goal to work towards.
But don't you think that there's a chance for bias for each individual? It's human nature to be biased.
It is human nature to be biased, but again, they're highly competent individuals that we're selecting through their technical skills, problem-solving skills, and people who are tolerant enough to be taking each other's opinions and perspectives without offense. At the end of the day, we're vetting them. That was the whole part of the procedure.
For the purposes of clarity, could you please expand on what you mean by bias?
By bias, I would say, for example, if one of the people on Mars was to be a Hindu and the other to be a Muslim, there would be a natural bias in one, like for their own religion. They would prefer their own religion and see it as a superior religion to the other one.
Look at every single country in the world that are secular. Look at the Netherlands, look at Denmark. We have centuries of knowledge to work from how to make a society that is actually peaceful with diversity of religion. So I don't think that's necessarily a problem, right? By virtue of the fact that we're unique social engineers, we have the capability of looking at what has worked throughout human history and what hasn't. So we won't be making the mistakes that are present in commonplace society right now.
Okay, team number 6, please.
What everyone here fails to realize is that even the secular countries have mentioned it in their constitution that if we look at the US constitution, we see that the First Amendment stated that there should be no religion in politics. And religion only causes problems when it's included in politics and in the constitution of some state. And if we are looking forward for a colony on Mars, we would be preferably looking forward for having no religion in the constitution or politics. But however, every person, every individual has their right to practice their religion within their personal
so would
boundaries.
everyone agree that we would like to have a secular constitution for our Mars colony? in which there is no single religion enforced in the law itself, but everyone is allowed to practice their own religion as they want. So, does anyone have any objection to that? Team number 3, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, are we forgetting that emotions are a nature of...
ऊपर करो.
We're forgetting that emotions are a nature of humans. Are we sending robots to Mars? Even if they're competent people, they're still gonna have their emotions involved in their actions. Even the president of a country, even the chief of army staff is gonna act on emotions once in their lifetime. When sending people on Mars, and there's as our organizer for this event gave an example that there's going to be a Hindu and a Muslim, at least at one point in their life they're going to differentiate on the basis of religion. They're going to be like, oh, he's a Muslim and my religion does not want me being friendly to a Muslim. I'm not going to choose him for this specific task. And further, keeping further in mind, as one of the questions included that breeding will happen on Mars. For example, a breeding is required to be happened between a Muslim and a Hindu. Now, if a Muslim is taking into consideration his religion, he's not gonna breed with a Hindu woman. Now, this is gonna cause breeding problems in Mars, and there's gonna be a lot of differences that this having separate religions will lead to.
From team number 4, Zahra, I guess you haven't given your opinions that much. Do you have anything to add to the discussion right now? Please. On the point we are discussing right now.
I'd like to talk about on the question in which you said that about biological babies or mother.
No, right now we are discussing religion, so that will come later. Do you have anything to add to the present discussion? Like, do we want to have a single religion or no religion or secular in nature? What pluralistic society? What is your opinion on this?
My opinion is that there should be multiple religions and everyone should be allowed to practice their own religion, whichever the religion they want to follow, they can.
Okay. Yes, team number 6.
The thing here we need to understand is that you can put a boundary on the ethnicity, you can put a boundary on different things, but considering how religion is such a subjective and sensitive topic, you cannot put a specific boundary that, okay, specific religions would be allowed, specific religions wouldn't be allowed, there should be a religion, there shouldn't be a religion. The thing we understand here is adding on to the code of conduct that every member that is going would sign and approve of the fact that there shall be no misconduct in religion as a whole. Next, we understand that this test we all were talking about would have its religious section in which it would ask and scrutinize if the member that is giving the test is viable enough to abide by the conduct of religion itself. This includes your basic morals that you're taught. This includes the generalized morals that all religion teach, rather than a specific thought or school of thought as specific religion teaches. So we understand the fact that if we put the section of religion in these tests, we understand that we won't have any confusion or any sort of problem relating to religion misconduct in the outer space.
Team number 5, modern age, please.
I believe that there should be a complete freedom of religion on Mars, because as a Muslims, we cannot live without our religion, and same goes for the practicing Christians, Jews, and Hindus. And there shouldn't be one religion, a universal religion. I believe that there should be a complete freedom of religion on Mars. And as my fellow stated, that your practice of your religion should not hurt and affect others. And I believe there should be a complete freedom of religion on Mars.
Okay. So should we move on to the next point then? I guess we are all agreed on that the basic point that religion should be allowed, but there shouldn't be one single religion in the constitution of the colony. So it should be the constitution should be secular in nature, right? You all agree. But everyone should be allowed to practice their own specific religions. Okay. The next question is, will the leader be elected or appointed? Will political parties be allowed? So how will we select the leader, elect or select the leader? Yes, team number 2.
So to answer this question, very important contextualization, characterization is needed. As Dr. Hudbhai mentioned before we started this debate, he said that we are separate from dictators or kings who overtook kingdoms because they had already set values of society present. We have the opportunity to build a society from the ground up. We have an empty canvas. To understand that, I propose two principles, right? So as Locke says in his in his work on natural freedoms, right? He says that natural freedoms consist of the right to liberty, property, and life. These are very fundamental principles, right? Rawls builds on this by saying that your right to individual freedom is only limited to the other person's right to not get harmed. So your right, so let's say my right to wave this pen in the air is only legitimate unless I hit Khatak on his head. So if I don't infringe upon the other person's right, my rights are infinite. Two principles, right? But understand that when we have this basic contextualization in point, another very basic framing is required. Survivability. Understand that to ensure that society survives, survivability is a very fundamental issue. And even in times of crisis, you can suppress individual rights in order to ensure the greater good. You can only have a society if it's present. So in order to have that, first we must form a leadership mechanism based on, let's say, something where we have a head of a mission and then a head of we can form a cabinet, and then we can move on to parliamentary democracies. But because the primary function is ensures the survivability of the colony instead of the greater thriving or sustenance. So these are the two criteria. Just 10 seconds, please. So number one, you need to ensure survivability. You can take extreme measures in that case. You can have, let's say, I wouldn't say a military form of governments, but something very similar to what we have in cantonments, right? Because the military is very effective in setting up new installations. I wouldn't say we should exactly copy that, but something on that lines. But as soon as the society grows and humanity becomes an interplanetary species, we can model our governance mechanism on parliamentary democracies because objectively and scientifically, this is the best possible mechanism of governance apart from all others. Thank you.
Team number 4.
I would like to question my fellow panelists. You said that we have an empty canvas that we can build up from ground. Do you really think we truly have an empty canvas? At the end of the day, humans are the ones going to the Martian colony, and you're already imprinted with all of our history, expectations, and beliefs. While I do understand that we can scientifically engineer a new kind of society, it's going to take a long time because at the end of the day, we already are imprinted. We're not starting from a clean slate. That is unreasonable and inhumane to be doing to be humans. And if we were to do that, they wouldn't know anything at all, even to walk or fly. So we do not have a truly empty canvas, but yes, we do have an opportunity to build a society that is
So I guess I should clarify this. There are two parts to this question, right? So first is the short-term selection of the leadership, and the next is the long-term selection of the leadership. So first of all, we just have a limited colony of 100 people, and all their main focus is survival, right? So what should be the governance structure for that? Team number 2 suggested that it should be kind of a military or kind of a leadership in which a leader is selected like a commander of a base, and he is in charge of all the decisions. So that is the first part, and the second part is when the whole of Mars is colonized, terraformed, and so human society spreads. Then how will we transition from the first kind of governance structure to a more democratic kind?
I think first of all, once we land there, the short term is going to be based on the mission commander. That person is the most reliable and the highest. Probably educated and in technical expertise as well, that is going to work the best for our survivability. Then we'll have to transition to a democratically elected government or someone. At the end of the day, I think it should be democratic because everyone gets the right to express their opinions and elect the individual they think is the best for them.
Team number 6 and then team number 1.
What do humans learn from? Humans learn from their history, and we've seen that every form of government has failed in one way or so another. And we have seen that the aristocracy has failed because it was being too much selective. We have seen that the democracy has failed because it was being too much democratic. We have seen that the military regimes have also failed because they have been too much of a dictatorship. And so what we need to realize is that what is the best option out of all of these type of governments. And so what we see is that we could join the philosophy of Socrates with democracy. What Socrates said was that if you're picking an elected person, he should be qualified enough to be elected as a leader. And
that was actually Plato's idea, not Socrates. Plato wrote that in his Republic, right?
And Plato was Socrates' pupil, and Socrates taught him all that.
No, okay, but Plato was the one who wrote that, so it is usually considered to be Plato's political philosophy, not Socrates. Socrates didn't write anything by
Yeah,
himself.
but
Okay. You can continue.
yeah. So basically, what we could do is that if we are sending 100 pioneers to Mars, they would be selected by the UN. And so, if they are going to Mars as a whole, so what we could do is that we could have a democracy within the panel, and we could be looking forward for an elected person within those 100 people. And so, if we are choosing them on a merit-based selection, there already be rationalists, individualists, and all of those things. And so, if we are taking them as a leader, they would know how to think as a rationalist, and the Constitution would also state that there should be no religion or no cultural significance in the constitution. Yes, a person can can carry forward their cultural diversities and their religions in personal manner, but there wouldn't be any in the constitution. And so, if we are taking democracy in this account, we would be looking forward for a state which has no biasness, and the pioneers are electing the member. And if the leader has failed to provide what they have wanted, so they could be looking forward to a revote and electing a new leader within any period of time, so that the colony should have a substantive and a comprehensive state.
Okay, good. Team number 1, please.
Like our fellow team members have explained, every type of system we have tried to make has failed. The reason I believe that is because a human who is prone to mistakes has made mistakes and which cost people, some people, their lives. So as such, I believe to avoid human bias, as everyone will do eventually, we need to have someone who is very, very, very good in decision making, has no bias, and always thinks logically. For that, we have invented a lot of new technologies. We have AI. The problem with AI, we often say, is that it's biased. Since all countries are working together, we can appoint someone, such as UN, to make an unbiased AI for this exact problem. Second, when we talk about political parties, I believe at first it should be a hierarchy with AI at the top, which and below them are some people which have been elected from local areas. They will be governing the people behind them. They will be directing them upon the AI's orders what to do and how to do. Then after some time, after that colony has grown, we can allow political parties for economic development and for people's representation.
Okay, team number 3, yes.
We believe that a leader should be appointed, but not one leader. We believe that we should be making a 10-people committee who would be taking all the decisions for the space for the Mars colony. We also believe that the 10 leaders committee, all the leaders would be selected on the basis of their skills, their leadership skills. Now, for further discussions, I'd like to hand the mic to my teammate Shazib.
I would like to state the fact that why are we choosing the people on from different states? Why are we taking every race into consideration to avoid discrimination? Now, as my fellow candidates over here stated that there should be a democratic system. Having a democratic system would mean that having different candidates standing up for being a leader. Now, this would divide the votes of the 100 people that are being over there. For example, 2 people stood up for the elections. 50 would
talk a little slowly. We can't really understand.
Let's say 2 people stood up for the elections. 50 of the people voted for candidate A, 50 of the people voted for candidate B. Now, this would promote a sense of criticism that I'm a supporter of party A, I'm a supporter of party B. Now, we should see that the current situation of Pakistan, every politics has always caused problems. Democracy leads to politics. Politics leads to conflicts. Conflicts will lead to this mission being a failure.
So you are basically saying that in the short term, we shouldn't have democracy, right? In the short term. What about in the long term?
In the long
term,
when
the whole planet is colonized.
When the whole planet is colonized, we would be working on making a law on proper democratic system.
Democratic system, okay. Modernage, team number 5.
So I have the idea of the leadership system, as I said in my speech as well, that we will have eventually 3 leaders in total. So now we move back to our initial step in which we take like 195 people for testing. Now, as I said, there will be 3 people. The first one is the head. For example, I chose the head to be on the top because, you know, if I started this whole thing, I know the most and I have been judging the people that how they're going to train and on what basis they're going to be trained. And for the second leader, who will actually handle the judiciary and punishment, economical crisis, and to basically keep the harmony intact on Mars, we will select him when we had our training. The first one who would be ranked on the top would be selected. And for the third leader, who would be more likely a supervisor, who would handle everyday issues, he would be selected on the basis, but he would be more from the civil training. And the training system is more, from my point of view, is more reliable, because when we see ourselves that okay, this person is more competent and he is more eligible to be there, so we cannot actually come up and disagree with that.
So I guess before leaving Earth, all of the roles will be pre-decided, right?
And
who is the leader, who is the deputy leader, and so on, and who is in the engineering division, and so on. So everyone will know their place before going into the colony. But I guess there should be some provision in the rules of the colony as well to change the leader as well, because if the leader turns out to be incompetent or something happens to him, then we should be able to appoint another leader. So what should be the procedure for that? Should the commands come from Earth? Or should the next two people in the division, should they be automatically promoted, or should we go into a more democratic system in which everyone will be allowed to vote as to who will become the next leader? What do you guys think about that? Yes, team number 6.
First of all, we need to understand that if we're sending these people to Mars, they have to have a freedom of speech and freedom of expression that they hold in their colony, rather than us redirecting them what to do and what to not do. Considering the fact that there are 100 alleged people who are properly diplomatic enough to do their ideas and to fulfill what they want and what they need, we need to understand that we have to give them the right to choose who they want as a leader and the right to who they want to change as a leader. Next, we need to understand that these people would have we shall have a 192 member ambassadors from every country that is paying a tax to form a committee that would further decide who the member would be. And when these members are sent to Mars as a whole, they would be given the right to do whatever they want, to choose whoever they want. If we're going to redirect them instructions from here, we're just acting like a dictator
Yes,
and not working on
point taken. So you want no influence from Earth, okay? So the Martian colony will decide on their matters themselves, okay? So
on legal matters
agreed.
and not on matters that are related to our aim.
So for example, if something happens to the leader, for example, he dies or something, he gets sick, then how will the new leader be appointed? That was my question, right?
We have, for sending 100 people, we have to understand we can send 80 people, which are basic for the aim, and 10 legal experts that are going to advise them and that are going to supervise them.
No,
that is going to be
a
part of it.
Come on. We will barely be able to. The environment will be so harsh. We need every hand on deck, right? We can't just send 10 lawyers over there to just debate amongst each other. That will be a waste of space and resources, right? So we need all of them to be experts in the matters of the colony. That will be a complete waste of resources.
But we can have a specific amount of legal experts, but because if we do not have them, there shall be anarchy and we cannot stabilize what's going on.
No.
Because considering the fact that we're giving them a right to do whatever they want, we need someone to supervise them as a whole.
Okay. Team number 4, please. Team number 4. Wait a second.
I think the legal expert point is hilarious, because as a student of law myself, I know I can spend hours and hours doing debate, and that's truly a waste of resources, and we cannot do that here. So as my fellow panelists mentioned, I think we're forgetting that 150 years from now, we will be highly dependent on technology. I don't know if everyone here has seen the movie Wall-E, but we can take inspiration from that and know that we will be using technology in our day-to-day lives. So I don't see why we shouldn't use that here as well. We already have limited space for humans, but we can use the technology. We are already taking
the technology is not reliable enough to make such crucial decisions about the colony.
Yes, but it can work in an interim, short-term.
We can use AI to help us make some technical decisions, but we can't expect it to.
It can have the legal knowledge you might require.
Yeah. Okay.
And you can use it as a short-term solution, because at the end of the
only
day,
as an aid, right? Only as an
at
aid.
the end of the day, long-term solutions is always going to be democratically
Yes.
done.
Team number 2.
I don't think we need a new answer for this question. There's an answer as old as humanity, and it's found in the military. What happens when a captain goes rogue? What happens when a major goes rogue? There's rules of conduct that are set out already. That, for example, if an officer gives me an unlawful order, I have the right to reject it. If my officer is not performing competently with his duty in professional militaries, you have the ability to take him out, even if he's your commanding senior officer. I think the answer can be found in military or administrative dynamic structure. when push comes to shove, if your leader is incompetent, you have the ability to remove him. And if he's doing something fundamentally against the principles or views that are available to the larger goals of the colony. So when all the other teams come here and try to give us new structures that aren't democratic, or they try to come up with a new constitution, I think that's in folly. Why? When I look at the past 300-400 years of human history, I know what works and what doesn't. You don't want to be like a scientist. We're not experimenting here. This is the most important thing in human history. I look at the American Constitution as a guide, a living, breathing document that evolves over time. I look at parliamentary democracy. You don't want a new form of government or a new form of structure. We know parliamentary democracies work because they've worked around the world and they take into the opinions of everyone. You don't want a new code of conduct because philosophers, thinkers, and lots of professors have hundreds and thousands of books already written on this. Why do I want to change the entire book when I know?
So you basically want to import the military structure in the short term of the governance of the colony. That's what you're saying.
Not necessarily a military structure, but we can derive influence from the military over here in this regard. But we want to make a new structure that is influenced that for the purposes of survival. When survival is ensured, when there is enough food, when we know that there's enough air to breathe, we want to move into parliamentary democracy in the long term.
Okay, just to add, so we don't want
Be
to.
brief, please.
We don't want to have this misconceived notion that we want to import a military dictatorship, military structure. Talk about NASA, right? NASA has modeled its missions and the Apollo mission, especially the new ones. I'm not sure what it's called, but mission going to moon, based on the military structure. So we're not exactly.
Mars never planned a colony of 100 people. They only sent 2 or 3 people on their missions. So this is completely different dynamics we're talking about.
I'm just saying what NASA uses is a very effective mode of mechanism. They have a mission commander and then experts who work under him. So I think if we just extract that mechanism and implement this.
These are 100 people you are talking about. There's not just 4 or 5 people.
It's just a larger structure.
Managing 4 or 5 people is relatively easy. We can assign a single leader who everyone else can obey his commands. But what about when you have
a larger structure? It's the exact same thing. The principle is the same, just more amount of people. Just because there's a large amount of individuals
large amount of individual increases the complexity of the situation. Don't you agree?
True, but like an Athenian democracy with 1,000 people or 100,000 people, the principle
that didn't last very long. Athenian democracy didn't last very long.
Okay, but modern parliamentary democracy does exist in the vast majority of nations that are here right now. How so? Okay, one thing. I have proof on my side. NASA works. What you guys are saying, you're asking me to come up with a new solution and you have no proof for it.
But NASA is doing space exploration.
Is it better to have a bad solution than no solution at all?
No solution.
Okay.
In one case, you're having an active external negative externality. In our case, at least negative externality doesn't exist. We say that we don't want any harm. We want nothing. You're saying you want active harm. That's the difference between me and our team and the rest of the teams here at this panel.
Yes. Anyone want to team number 1? Yes, Abdurrahman.
I would like to disagree on the fact that we
keep the mic on, please. Don't turn it off.
I would like to disagree on the fact that we can have democracy on the short term is because democracy is kind of a slow process. You need a vote on every matter. Suppose at the colony a fire happens or electricity is cut off, we don't have enough fuel.
Yeah.
But these problems will arise. If they do arrive, then you have to decide who to die and who to not. In this case, in democracy, yes, everyone votes and you can't do that. You don't have enough time, you don't have enough resources to vote.
Yeah, they weren't advocating for that, and for those kinds of short-term quick decisions, we need someone to make a decision quickly. But what I was asking you guys was that, for example, for the appointment of a new leader, which can the decision doesn't have to be taken quickly. For those kinds of administrative large-scale decisions, do we go for a more democratic model? Because eventually we have to expect that we will transition to a larger society as well, because, for example, babies will be born and the society will expand gradually. So if we impose a purely militaristic structure in which only 1 or 2 people make all the decisions, don't you think that a transition to a more democratic society will become more difficult in that scenario? Even though the military structure is in the short term more efficient, don't we want to inject some kind of democracy in the beginning? Don't you guys agree?
No, that's why I said they were because that's why I said there was a hierarchy. In the beginning, there's an AI. Since this is 150 years into the future, AI will be way, way smarter than it is now. If it's not able to make decisions now, it'll be making decisions in milliseconds in the future. That's why when I said at the people level, there will be votings within groups. Who will be the leader? Who will be able to help them and tell them what to do sufficiently? This leader will be obviously been chosen using the test results and through the democratic process in the area. Since AI is unbiased, it's controlled by humans. You can decide to kick it out or not. With this, you can
This
just
is
decide
also
to
a
make
very
a
interesting
democracy.
point that I want the rest of the team's opinion on as well. Do we really want to trust in AI making all of the chief decisions of the colony?
Does artificial intelligence have the capability to make better decisions than humans?
Even if it does have the capability of making better, let's assume that. Do you want an AI to be making the decisions of for humanity, for the future of humanity?
No.
For why?
On account of the fact that human beings ought to control their future narrative itself and understand why AI makes a decision. AI does have technological processes and comes to good solutions, but we need to understand why it comes to those solutions. Human sentience as a principal means should always be the way forward, because artificial intelligence and human beings are key distinct elements.
Team number 6, please. Do you have any response to this specific question, not something else, okay? This the AI part.
Not the part on which how a new elected leader would be on Mars. The question you asked that how would we elect a
Yeah,
new...
you can be brief on that. And
so
then
basically
come
what
to-
everybody failed to realize is that if you're looking forward for an oligarchical democracy in which the 100 panel of the pioneers would decide the leader, they could have a revote at any time as they'll be acting as a parliament themselves. And so if they're voting upon a majority to oust the leader, they'll be looking forward for a new democratic process for a new leader, and that new leader would also be elected through a democratic process, and so there will be no implications on electing a new leader. And as for the AI, we could not depend on AI in any circumstances, because AI is not something that you could rely on saying
in any circumstances.
Yeah, because if we see AI has its many implications. AI does not always give the correct solutions to everything. However, if we look forward for AI for small decisions, for example, if we want to create a paragraph or something, then we could look forward to AI, but we cannot base our whole democracies and governments on something that does not even exist.
Okay, team number 5, please.
Also, I have one more question.
Yes.
Is crosstalk allowed?
No, crosstalk is not. Only I will permit you guys to
But
speak.
there are some teams cross-talking.
They're talking amongst each other. They're not talking at you.
I will answer.
Please, everyone, when a team is speaking, please be silent. Okay, just wait for your turn to speak.
I will answer both questions. I believe when the elected leader will die, eventually there will be they all are 100 people which we send on Mars. They have already passed the training which anyone never heard of and never think about it. So we can regard them as the superhumans. They have gone to Mars, and the leader, if the leader will die, the second one, the second one on the rank, he will surely be elected as a leader, and the person will be judged by the people. And the second question you stated, that I don't think that we should depend upon AI, because we built AI, and I don't think we can take commands from
Even
AI.
if AI makes better decisions on matters of the colony and it is shown to be very,
Basically-
very reliable on even complex matters, do you want AI to be guiding the future of humanity, even if it ensures better survival as compared to a human making a decision? What do you guys think?
Decision is a different thing, and taking an idea is a different thing. So we can basically take idea from the AI, but we cannot initially and completely use AI for making decisions. So if the AI is going to make decisions, then what we are for?
Yes, anyone else? Yes, team number 3, please.
I would like to state that taking ideas from AI is highly disrespectful to the 100 people that are being sent on Mars, as they are highly competent and trained for this mission. I would like to also state that AI is a model designed by the humans. It could easily be exploited on the basis of if a person wants leadership and he knows how AI works, he could easily exploit AI.
Are humans more exploitable or AI? Team number 1, yes, Abdul Rahman.
I believe we are constantly forgetting the fact this is 150 years into the future. AI is always evolving, always. It's always being trained on new data. You can always give it new data, new Martian data.
I gave you that. I'm agreeing that AI is already much smarter than us in many different domains, and I'm assuming that 150 years into the future it can be almost generally intelligent or super intelligent. But do we really want philosophically, on a philosophical level, do you want an AI to be like the supreme decision maker and lead the future of humanity instead of humans making the decision collectively? Wouldn't that be like a silicon dictatorship?
Yes, but like the other team also mentions, this is a ride or die mission. either either it successfully manages and converts Mars into a humanized colony, or it fails. To
Okay.
avoid all chances of failing, we
Okay,
need a
so that's a
proper-
good proposal. In the short term, we can take the help of AI in the short term if it is advanced enough. But in the long term, when society expands, maybe we should discard it as its from its past role as the supreme decision maker and transition to a more democratic process, right? Yes, team four, team four, team.
Thank you. I think we're underestimating how AI can augment us. Even as of now, we're already looking into how AI can augment our creativity and whatnot. So at the end of the day, we need a hybrid system. We have already tested out all these systems in our history, as my fellow panelists mentioned, and they all have some sort of issue. So why not pick and choose? Why are we making this a one-side thing? Like, oh no, we have to follow this. We don't have to critically follow anything. We have the control in this situation. We can evolve. I don't see why we're taking that out of consideration. We can evolve it. We can change it anytime. These are
Yeah,
100.
that's actually not that easy. For example, if we integrate AI into all of our systems on the colony, and the AI has a mind of its own, or it evolves a mind of its own, then that can also lead to disaster, right?
Yes.
So we should also take that into account, like
I'm-
giving a very, very smart entity control over the
I
operations
never
of the entire.
said that we should be completely dependable on technology. Even as of now, we know that depending on technology is not useful to humanity, and it is destroying our minds and deteriorating us in many sense. But
This is a Mars colony. Survival is a number one priority over there. So we will have to depend significantly on technology.
We are going to
Very, very different
significantly
situation.
depend on technology, but not very specifically on AI. Yes, we can take help from it, and as my fellow panelists mentioned, we can take inspiration from it. I don't see why we shouldn't do that. We don't want to dictate anything. We can change. Yes, that could not be possible in quick decision making for like quick decisions, but in the long term, it can be used. This is not a dictatorship.
Okay. Yes, team number 6, please. Uske baad team number 2.
The only question I want to ask the fellow speaker is, Mars is something even 150 years ahead we're unknown to. Do you think something we're unknown to is something that AI is known to? We need to understand, when you put AI in a structure of government, and people such as the team one states how AI would be preferably on the top of the government, we do not understand the fact that Mars, even 150 years ahead, the reason why we're sending our pioneers is because we're unknown to the environment of it. We have to be known in order to send these people. Do you think putting AI and artificial technology into it would make it easy enough to be governed itself? We need to understand that AI should only be given an advisory power or suggestive role to the pioneers who have already been sent,
Okay.
and the pioneers will be given the major role.
Okay, point taken. So yes, so this was an interesting point raised by Abdurrahman initially, that we should take the help of AI. But I guess that most of us will agree that we shouldn't place it at the very top of our governance structure, right?
Exactly.
And make it the supreme decision maker, because that can lead to all kinds of different problems. So we should always, the final control should always be in the hands of the colony of humans. But we should keep our AI systems in a technical advisory role and take their help whenever needed. For example, in short-term decisions, we can integrate it with our emergency systems, and whenever there is a problem, it can suggest the best possible solution, and then it can suggest 2 or 3 solutions, and then the human can select which thing to go with, because that will considerably quicken our decision-making process and help our survival, right? So we can definitely integrate AI. AI is an integral part even of our current technology, and will be a more integral part in the future. But we can't really make it our supreme dictator, right?
Because
okay,
it will
so
go against democracy.
okay, so. I guess we discussed the problem of religions as well. You guys gave a pluralistic solution for that. And we also discussed how the leaders will be elected, appointed in case there is any problem, and the use of AI as well. Political parties are into the future, and you guys all agreed that when we transition to a bigger colony across the whole of Mars, then we will have to discard the dictatorship, the militaristic structure, and go to a more democratic, and then political parties will definitely be allowed, right? So wait a second. So we can we have many other points to discuss. So next, our point is, the 5th point is group identity. Commonality of race, religion, ethnicity, language has both pluses and minuses on Earth. How will this work out in the colony, and how to deal with it? Will group identity be welcomed or punished? What are guys? Yes, team number 2, please.
So group
Thoughts on
identity.
this?
a group identity or categorization is an inherent part of the human process, independent of what kind of categorization it is. For example, many people think racism is only exclusive to Europe. For example, in Africa, there's a lot of racism. Look at Rwanda, the Hutus and the Tutsis. Amongst black people that are very similar, they discriminate between each other. So I'm proving to you that categorization is an inherent part of the human psychological process. So if there is going to be categorization, we have to make it in a positive way, right? So we have to promote group identity as a consequence of that fact. We want to promote positive group identity because any attempts at completely discarding group identity holistically will lead to conflict because human beings will eventually form some kind of categorization or group in any way, shape, or form. So we want to promote the kinds of identities we have right now. So if you're an African American, you can be an African American, you can be European, but discourage things like, let's say, being a Nazi or anything that is considered holistically negative already.
Don't you think China is a very good counterexample to this? For example, before the communist revolution, there were many different kinds of subcultures and religions over there as well, Taoism and Buddhism and Confucianism, etc. But they came in and they erased all different kinds of group identity and enforced a single group identity, that of the communist person. So didn't that lead to a very much more efficiently working society in China as opposed to other places where the religious strife seems to never end and different groups keep clashing with each other? So instead of strengthening group identity, don't you think that we should promote the philosophy of humanity, humanism first of all? We should inculcate that into the first 100 people who are going to Mars, that you are humans first and then you are like Pakistanis, Indians, and Muslims, Hindus later on.
I agree, but the removal of group identity even in China isn't a good thing. Why should we compromise on individual freedoms? Is the average Chinese man a person that we should look up to? You are well fed, but even, no offense, my dog at home is very well fed, but does he have the ability to think? That is what differentiates enlightened human beings and non-enlightened human beings. The ability to have freedom in society. You can have a good society even in the presence of group identity. Look at the United States. And even in the example of China, for example, Uyghur Muslims are actively moving away from mainstream Chinese society. So their attempts at repression eventually lead to more problems overall.
Okay, team number 6, do you have a response, an answer to this question? Group identity.
Every society has several races, every society has several cultures, and within those cultures there are also subcultures. What we need to realize is that everybody talks in the modern age about the convergence of different groups into one to have a unity in a state. What we fail to realize is that if you merge two cultures within a single culture, the majority would always dominate the minority, as we have seen in Pakistan, that when Iskandar Mirza made the one unit scheme, the Baluchis were dominated by the Punjabis, and so their culture was basically dominated all over, and we call this term cultural genocide. However, looking at the critical race theory and the cultural race theory, it believes that every culture should has its own conscious and control over their religion, and so every religion, every culture, and every race should be well aware of what they need and what they desire of in their culture and their political needs, and so every culture should have their spokesperson as should have their spokesperson on the behalf of the whole culture, so that they could transgress this into the future.
Okay, so I guess this is also very similar to the points we discussed earlier, right? About the languages and about the distribution of religions and races. This is very similar to that. Group identity is also, all of these previous categories are kinds of group identity. So all of you were agreed in the previous discussion as well that we should have allow everyone to practice, have their own separate identity. But we shouldn't enforce a single identity on the whole colony, and everyone should be allowed to practice.
Because racism and cultural racism both exist in the political systems, and if we are disincluding them from the political systems, we are making sure that there is no bias in the political systems.
We should minimize bias in the governance structure and the constitution of the colony.
And if the person are biased towards their own cultures, they would have a platform to speak for their own cultures and diversities, and so no person would have the entitlement to
But do you agree that during the training process we should first emphasize humanism? when we are training the 100 candidates, instead of telling them that yes, you can practice whatever you want, you can be whatever you want, you can continue your identity, but instead of that, we should emphasize that your main goal is survival, the continuance of the human species, not your own specific tribe in which you happen to be born, right? So your first and your prime identity is that of a human. So do you agree that in the training phase we should emphasize that and try to select only those that don't have a very, very strong attachment to a specific identity?
As we discussed earlier, my team, that the selection process would be based on rationalism and individualism. And a
Not individualism, because you have to work together as a group.
Yeah.
If they're extremely individualistic, hyper individualistic, that is also a
No,
minus,
but
right?
if they are individualistic on Earth, they are trained to be to form a community on Mars for 100 people.
By the way, this is a contradiction, because if we want to select for like very community oriented people, they will usually have a very strong sense of group identity as well. So this is a kind of contradiction that we have to deal with. Wait a second. So people who are very, very community oriented, they usually they are practicing a certain kind of religion and they associate very strongly with a particular culture and so on. And people who are very strong humanists, individualists, they don't have very strong attachment to any identity, but they're also very individualistic and not very community oriented, right?
Yeah, so
they have a life of their own. So that is also something.
So basically, in communities, there is a bias towards one thing or another, and individualistic on Earth only thinks what is beneficial for an individual. And when we train them and think of them as rationalists, when they go on Mars, they would be looking forward to progress the colony on Mars. And in a parliament, they are bound by the code of conduct to have a vote.
Okay, and next, does anyone else have something to say about this? Yes. Yes, group number five, modern age school.
I believe that group identity have many minuses on Earth as well, and we are going on Mars, and we have to avoid the mistake that we had already made on Earth. So group identity would highly be condemned on Mars, and I think it will avoid the conflict and division amongst the individual. My fellow will continue.
So basically, if we would have a chance right now that somehow we can basically erase this discrimination on the basis of races and ethnic groups and ethnicity and everything, won't we erase it? Like, do you want to see someone suffer because of just racism? Because we know that black people have been suffering so much just because of racism, and African people and everyone. So basically, the purpose of this whole craft, creating this society and this colony on Mars is that we want to shape a new world. We want a new world, and we do not want to make the same mistakes that we have already done on this earth. So if we are going there, the racism should be condemned because it has been a major reason for the conflicts. And as for the diversity...
So that means that group identity should be encouraged, right? So that goes against what your team member just said,
No.
that group identity should be discouraged.
Yes, it
but
should
you
be.
said that everyone should be allowed to identify with their own race, so that racism is
No,
minimized.
I said no racism.
Yeah, you said no racism, right? So that means everyone should be allowed to cling to their own identity, right? Their
Yes.
specific race, whether they're black or white.
But
So that is the opposite of what your teammate was saying.
But basically, we are talking about the group identity. Like, if it's like there are three people and they're going to be discriminated on that basis. So we do not want that.
Okay, anyone else? Team number 3?
As my fellow panelists over here have previously said that there should be a democratic system, there should be there should be different religious groups, there should be different languages. This all conflicts with the idea of group identity. If democracy, religion, different languages, all ultimately leads to group identity. Everyone's gonna be differentiating each other on the basis of groups, that we speak this language, you speak this language, we support this party, you support this party. Ultimately, this is gonna lead to biasness in incompetency in the colony, which will result in the failure of the Mars mission. Therefore, there should be, group identity should seriously be prohibited.
Should be discouraged in the initial phases of
Yes.
the colony. That's what you're saying. Okay. Team 1, उसके बाद team 4. उसके बाद फिर next point पे. On रखो mic यार, बंद ना किया.
While yes, the group identity is a major reason for racism, the reason group identity leads to racism is because one group is pinned against another group. If Mars truly is a fresh start for humans, and if we can avoid pinning groups against each other, then racism in the first place won't even happen. And group identity is something that allows you to not feel alienated. if you don't feel alienated, if you feel that people who know you, who support you, people of your kind are with you, you feel more motivated to work. If you're more motivated to work, then the colony will overall do better.
Okay, so
Team number 4. Yes.
as team 1 mentioned, group identity will help us be united and help us feel that sense of identity and support. And as you mentioned, the communities are pitted against each other. That's why we have racism. The basic reason why we have racism is because we are unable to understand the perspective the other person has, and we think that they're wrong, and we think that what we believe is right. So at the end of the day, we should just become tolerant enough and have the ability to understand each other's perspective. If the individuals are highly competent, I believe they should have the emotional intelligence to learn these concepts. Even if they do not already have being on Earth, they can learn these concepts during their training periods and implement those. This is not a question of whether we need a group identity or not. A group identity is eventually going to come across because you're a community, you're a society, you're going to eventually develop something, even if it's just a being on the Martian colony. It's a human psyche.
So there should be a new group identity should evolve on its own naturally,
Yes.
and when they move there initially, they should be they should be trained to form a separate group identity of their own as colonists on Mars, as humans first.
Not
Because
necessarily.
if they import all their different various identities onto Mars, and wouldn't that create various kinds of conflict?
Not necessarily. What I'm saying is that the pioneers should be tolerant of each other. They should be able to respect each other's opinion and learn each other's perspective.
Also, they should be. Wouldn't you agree? They should be trained to not take their own identities that seriously.
Exactly.
Yes.
They should have the emotional
So both of
intelligence
these
for that.
things,
They can be
shouldn't
trained.
Be too seriously
And then-
attached to their identities,
Yes.
and also they should be tolerant.
And then eventually, as they will spend enough time together on a society, they are going to build it. And as I would like to quote the example of Mars Academy USA again. The people who are spending time in in-person analog astronaut training spend pre-training time bonding with each other.
Yes.
That is also going to take
Yes.
place.
Okay. Yes. So that will be part of the training program. Okay. Let's move on to the second last point. So what will be the governance structure of the colony? We have discussed this already, but specific things like education. How will education be take place for the next generation? Health, dispute resolution. So if all of the decisions have to be made internally, so there will be no interference from Earth. So how will all of these decisions? What is your vision for the specific aspects of the colony? How will education take place? What will be the health aspect of the colony and dispute resolution? Let's start with education of the colony. For example, the next generation grows up, or for example, we can start with that. How will that take place? Any ideas?
So, since we support a parliamentary democracy, we can have a parliament come to a conclusion regarding how to make a good educational system. And we look at the world right now as it is. What are the countries that have the best education systems in the world? And we can exactly replicate that. There's not a need to come up with a new solution. These are questions as old as time. And the governance structure can also be come up by the parliament using
Any
the
examples? Can you give any examples?
Finland has a very good education system. Higher education, the US has the best universities in the world, bar none. And they've produced the best possible scientific achievements relative to
But
funding
in the
over time.
colony, resources will be limited, space will be limited. We wouldn't be able to replicate the Finland education system verbatim, right? Because that requires a lot of resources, lots of teachers. We have limited amount of teachers, limited space, limited resources.
We should attempt towards that, but we can also just take thousands of videos from Earth regarding education. We can have online videos.
Or we can use AI as well for this.
You can use artificial intelligence.
Use education.
A more important point but the more important point to bring here is that whatever constraints we have, we can always extract the principles from the higher education system in America or the primary and middle education system in Finland, and then replicate them in a way which is best suited to our needs.
Yes, so that's what I'm asking here. Did you guys come up with any specific solutions for this problem? Because it was part of the debate, right? How will education take place on the colony? Team number 6, yes. Team 5, then team
First
4.
of all, we need to understand that our main aim there is colonizing Mars as a whole. And then when the secondary aim comes of proper colonizing, which regards to how your generations are going to move on, then we might need a specific education system that might involve the volunteers that are willing to educate different children and different individuals on Mars as a whole. Next, we understand that the curriculum shall be different from what it has been on Earth. We understand the curriculum on Earth has been specifically biased. Even if you look at the history of Pakistan, even if you look at the history of different states, we understand that the curriculum is specifically biased towards its nation itself. We need to understand that if we're basing a whole education system and if we're given a chance to completely disregard the mistakes that we've made on Earth, we have to make it a pure system. That would be pure enough, considering the fact that we have diversity of individuals that can volunteer to teach and build a new education curriculum that is not biased towards any nation, that isn't biased towards any concept or theory that a nation proposes, but a generalized and a specific individual learning concept system. Next, my fellow would continue.
Also, what we need to realize is that not every education department would be feasible on Mars, as you would not be teaching Earth's history on Mars. You would not be teaching Earth's physics on Mars. You would need
Physics
special.
is the same everywhere.
No, but Mars has different. If we look at the basic example,
Environment.
if we look at the basic example, the gravitational acceleration of Mars is different, and so could be many other things, as we have never reached Mars on our own. Also, what we need to realize is that if we are in a parliamentary form of government, we'll be looking forward for different ministries under the panel of the 100, and to be specified, for example, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Information, which would be sending reports to Earth, and we would be training individuals here according to Mars's reports, and so we'll be sending those educationists further down the road to Mars. So they will be looking forward to create an educational system there.
Can we discuss the curriculum? For example, there are many interesting questions here. So will we teach about the different religions in the curriculum, or will we emphasize only the philosophy of humanism in the curriculum for the next generation? What will we be teaching the next generation?
What we need to realize,
will everyone adopt the religion of their parents, and then the group identity just continues? Because you are supposed to build a new colony on Mars. So any ideas along those lines?
what we need to realize is that if you're sending a panel of 100 people, they would have different religions. And as the team once said, that they had a concern that how would Hindu would breed with the Muslim. So what we expect is that a Muslim would be looking forward to breed with a Christian, and so the offspring would not be biased to any one of the religions, as his parents would be from both of the religions. And so we do not need to educate them about specific religions in the schools, because if we do, then it's just part of then religion is just part of our constitution, and so it's leading to further political biasness and extremism.
Okay, team number 5, please.
First, I would like to talk about the governance structure on Mars, I believe.
Talk about the education first, because we can talk about that later.
As you said about the curriculum, I believe that we cannot teach the English subject on Mars, and we cannot implement the education system of Earth on Mars. I believe what the curriculum should be is we should teach them discipline and ethics, problem solving strategy, space science, virtual reality, Mars science, engineering and technology, physical health, psychological, robotics, entrepreneurship, law, medicine.
Entrepreneurship, okay.
Foundational sciences. And I think that this should be the curriculum on Mars. Okay. And the rest...
Do you have anything to add?
I would have on this.
Entrepreneurship भी सिखाएंगे, उधर भी capitalism आ जाएगा.
But I have on the government structure, we should have a flexible government rather than having a fixed government structure, at least for the start, because we are completely moving to a new planet. So we can't just go there and just state something like this is the fixed rule and this is the government structure. So we would be continuously experimenting new things. So we should let it be a flexible
About
government.
the education, what do you think about the curriculum? What will we teach the next generation on Mars?
Well, almost the same. More likely space science, actually.
Team 4.
I think the curriculum for at least the short term can be that we've all heard the phrase a village is required to raise a child. All of these individuals are highly competent and they're all specialized in their own fields. These individuals can impart their wisdom and knowledge to the children at that time, and then we can build an education system for later on, depending on what needs to be taught for highest chance of survivability. And also, considering that we're going on Mars, our next focus is going to be exploring space. So our focus will definitely have to be on space exploration, physics, and all of those kind of subjects. And at the end of the day, we already...
Those are not controversial. Physics and technical subjects are not controversial.
Yeah,
but I'm
they're not.
talking about the philosophy that we will be teaching the young generation, right? I won't give any opinion of mine right now, but just a suggestion that wouldn't we want them to be conceive of themselves as a spacefaring civilization, for example, like Carl Sagan taught us, and think of the Earth as just a pale blue dot and a small little world suspended in a sunbeam, very delicate, very fragile, and as ourselves as stewards of humanity, expanding into space.
That is definitely going to happen because the people born on Earth are going to have a completely different perspective of the people who went from Earth. They are born as Martians. That's a completely different perspective. So,
Okay. Team number 2, please. Team number 2.
So, a very big gripe I have with the Earth is that the vast majority of human beings aren't philosophical agents. What does this mean? Is the average man capable of critically thinking that what he has done is correct and what he is doing is correct? So, on Mars, with respect to the curriculum, we teach the sciences and we also teach philosophy. But I don't think this is a question relevant to ask to me. Ask this question from Dr. Ruth Boy or any good professor and these educational schools throughout the world. Harvard University School of Education, ask a professor how to make a curriculum. This is a very simplistic question in this regard.
Every response you make is like saying that someone, like, we've already figured it out, but I want exact examples.
I gave you an answer. You teach philosophy and you teach the sciences. This is how every single society has created super competent individuals, whether it's ancient Greece or modern United States.
What philosophy should we be teaching the students? I've already said it's not controversial to teach physics and biology and etc. That is common.
There's a standardized set of modern philosophy. You teach Western philosophy, Eastern philosophy, and major religious philosophy. All of this is possible within 12 years of educating a kid from the ages of 1 to 18.
Yeah, team one, please. Usko do.
But why should we teach philosophy in the first place? Isn't humanity born into every child? Isn't every child born a human? Aren't the opinions of religion, of treating other people you have? It's not say that you learn them. You could also just have them from the beginning. And since you are teaching kids with other kids, they shall learn social skills through this. How to treat other kids in this sense. Teachers will also be telling them how to and how not to behave. So it's really necessary to teach philosophy in the first place.
Team 3, please. Any input?
Since everyone is unanimous on the point of technical and space physics and exploration, on the point of philosophy, I would like to state that in the ages of 4 to 16, a child should be taught the basic ethics and civics and how to live like a proper community and how to treat other people. Basic human rights should be taught about how to work as a single community, basically. Initially, our focus should be on the medical science, as survival is our topmost priority. So medical should be enhanced the most, and then we should come on the technological and mechanical aspects of the education that should be taught. But all of this would be possible if the people know how to treat each other properly. So ethics and civics should be taught as well.
Yeah, team 6 and then team 2.
When we talk about the philosophy or the curriculum we need to teach the students, we understand that every religion, besides their biased opinions, has a basic morality and essence of basic morality. What we can do is we can teach the students the basic morality of every religion that exists within. We understand with this we can cover ethics, we can cover different subjects and different aims that we want. Secondly, we need to understand that our main aim is the exploration of Mars, and we understand that how these individuals are highly endangered and they need to learn how survival instincts and how survival as a whole works. Thus, we need to prioritize survival subjects as on the top tier. We could initiate these subjects and acts and your proper practical aims of how you can teach a student how to survive in a state of being on a Mars itself. We need to understand that the atmosphere and different specific things on Mars are going to be totally different from how they're normal on Earth. We need to understand that we have to teach these students not only space physics, not only civics, but also survival subjects that could further help them to survive, and that could help other generations to help us explore Mars as a whole.
Yeah, so survival skills will be a top priority in the curriculum, obviously. How to survive on Mars. Yes.
Shariar bhai, I'd like to bring this to your attention that I feel that this question was phrased it was phrased quite unfairly. To ask a bunch of kids in high school on what model are they going to bring, which we're going to export to Mars, is very unfair. Understand that we're a bunch of high school kids, and your initial question was, did we prepare any model? Even if we did, why not adopt the best possible method out there with when professors like Dr. Hoodboy have worked over
That's
millennia.
not how debate works. Come on.
Isn't it a
You
hypo?
could have just
On-
you
but on a secondary
you can
level,
just, for example, even instead of saying all that, you can just state some links that we can go to and then take our model from there. You're supposed
because-
to.
And
the
it's
debate,
a hypothetical
wait a
situation
second, I'm
that you
speaking. Wait a second. You aren't allowed to cross talk. So you are supposed to, because you came to this debate of your own volition, right? You chose to came here, so you were supposed to bring a basic kind of model to these things. You can't just transfer it on to somebody else. That
I agree
models
with you.
exist already. And secondly, we can't just, as I said before, we can't just wholly import a model that's working in a society of 100 million people, for example Finland, onto a Mars colony, completely different planet, only 100 people. We will have to have significant modifications to any curriculum
Why?
that we propose, because there are only 100 people. The environment is completely different. Okay, the conditions that a child grows up in is completely different. Don't you see that?
I don't think so. I think you're just putting individuals in a different environment, and you have to have a different educational curricula.
Anyone has a response to this?
First of all, we need to understand that we're in a hypothetical situation where we're given specific powers just to act accordingly to it. We cannot just reference to every question saying that it already exists as a model in different world and call it out that we can copy it. We cannot just say the US Constitution already exists or education systems already exist. We have to put forward new ideas because you're in a hypothetical situation. And as Sir suggested and told, you're in a hypothetical situation of dictatorship where you have essence of power. So we need to understand that we're bringing curriculums like ethics, civics. We have to understand that we cannot refer to models that already exist, but we can put forward new ideas that are creative enough.
Okay, so I think we should move on to the last point of the debate, and then we can move on to the closing statements. Okay, so for the closing statement, after we are done with the last point, you will get 2 minutes to prepare your closing statement. Then every team will have 3 minutes to present their closing statement. Okay, so the last point is that to compensate for natural and accidental death, the colony requires babies be born on Mars. Will a child have a mother and father as on Earth? To free the mother for other work, should the child be born in a special biological unit? That is a crucial question. It's born in a special biological unit and belong to the entire colony, or should we have the same family unit system that we have on Earth? Team 4, do you have any? Yes, you please.
In my opinion, the child should be born biologically and should belong to the entire colony, because biological babies, since they belong to the entire colony, they'll be raised equally, and there won't be any difference between them, which will obviously prevent conflict and the
What
colony.
about the gestation process, right? That was the point of the when I stated special biological unit. Will the mother carry the baby for 9 months and then care for it for the first few years, or do we just do it artificially in a special biological unit where the baby grows up on its own?
My question is, can we really grow a baby artificially when we already have
If we have AI
limited
if we have
resources?
enough sufficient advanced
We
AI to
already
handle
have
all
limited-
matters of the colony, then we probably would have technology. Let's assume that.
Okay, so if we assume that, then I think it should be choice at the end of the day. It depends on the person.
We are on Mars. You have to remember we are on Mars, and every decision is crucial, right? So everything
but
cannot just be left up to
Then
choice.
it can be decided based on the based on how much resources will be used up. The process that takes up the least amount of resources should be used, because at the end of the day we have to survive.
And that is the special biological unit, obviously, because that will free the mother for the matters
Yes,
of the colony.
it will,
So you agree that should special biological unit, basically.
Yeah.
Any other opinion on this? Team 5.
Okay, so my opinion on this is that the woman should be given freedom. For example, if if she's gonna give birth through, or if of course we can't implore her, but we have given this rule that you have to give birth through biological units. Now, how will she develop that the mother and the baby connection? Because the 9 months are there for a reason. They develop this bond and everything. And for the biological units, you can use in vitro fertilization. And we can do this thing. For example, the main question is to compensate for the natural or accidental deaths. When someone dies or something like that happens, at that time we can use our people and we can ask them if they can help us to make babies, or if they can help us with that. And for we can use the in vitro fertilization method, or we can, as you say, we can assume special biological units and everything.
Okay. Yes. Team 6.
Death is a natural occurrence, and what we need to realize is that if people die, obviously people are gonna die from from the pioneers that we sent. And so we need to have a recurring process of sending pioneers throughout the time it takes to colonize Mars. And so if you're sending people to Mars, and they obviously they will be young according to our criteria, and so if they are having sexual intercourses and they're breeding people, then it's good. But if some women do not want to be sexually committed to someone or something, and then we could have surrogacies, which would lead to females having offspring, and they would be raising them according to how a mother raises them. And then when they'll be introduced to a school, the school would have the education provided to the child to nurture themselves and move towards a educationalist society. And so what we need to realize is that breeding is very natural, and we need breeding to colonize the Mars, as we cannot send millions of people on Mars through Earth.
Don't you think that religion will interfere with this?
Okay, so basically if we take a Muslim, and according to we have allowed him to practice his own religion, and according to his own religion he is allowed to marry the people of the book. And obviously Christianity is in majority.
But you mentioned surrogacy as well, so I was...
Yeah, so if surrogacy happens, the sperms that are donated by the male, they are also categorized into what male donated them and what religion would he be from. And so the surrogacies could choose to offspring the baby of a person who is related to the religion or is permitted to commit to the religion.
But assume that, for example, if there's a Muslim woman who does not want to go through the 9 months, but it's vital for her in this situation to have an offspring. So what would you do in that situation? Because in that situation you can't have a surrogate.
Yeah.
So what would you do there?
Obviously, you need to look at the examples, and you need to look over the exceptions, as there are many people who want offspring, and not every woman wants that she does not have an offspring for her life. And so if you're sending 100 people, there is a majority of chance that every woman on there needs a offspring, and some of them might not even need surrogacy if they get attracted to each other. And see what we need to realize is that if 2 or 3 women do not give offspring, that does not affect the breeding system.
Okay, team number 2, please. Team number 2.
So, independent of how the children are born, whether it's within the biological unit or whether it is 9 months, team number 2 believes that the family structure is inherently necessary to the upbringing of a child, on account of the fact that the way evolutionary we've evolved, whether you look at animals, smaller animals flock towards their mothers, human beings flock towards their mothers as well. There's lots of psychology about this, of the attachment theory, of how you have to have a mother and have to have a family to be grown up. The entire colony can act as a larger family. So human beings have been biologically designed to live in small communities where everybody knows everybody, and it takes a village to raise a child. But on the question that the moderator asked regarding religious problems, even if that is a problem, the entirety of the colony isn't made up of Muslims, right? So there's a great diversity of individuals for the purposes of propagating humanity.
But I said if it was vital in that situation.
If it was vital in that situation, you must notice that in the religion of Islam, when something's vital, when survival is necessary, you can do anything required. So you can even eat food that is not acceptable in the religion for the purpose of survival. So as a Muslim, there would never be a problem.
Yes, so my next question would be that if we emphasize the family unit, for example, you stated correctly that there is lots of psychological, biological evidence that offspring need their mothers in the first few years of life. But we are building a colony on Mars, and we want to maximize the sense of unity among the colonists, at least for the first few generations when survival is crucial. It's a life or death situation. So in that case, when the first generation grows up, and if everyone is affiliated with their own family, when they grow up, wouldn't that lead to divisions and disagreements between various groups, different families, the offspring of various families? So wouldn't you agree that you should implement a more holistic kind of program for the nurturing of the next generation, in which the whole colony is involved, and the children feel that they are part of the whole colony and not just associated with their own biological mother and father.
So I think you're completely correct, but you can still give individuals a sense of larger community if they have their own family, right? My parents don't come at the cost of my uncles and my aunts. So let's say I take my own example. I come from a village. I belong to my own family, but I also have an association with that village for the purposes of furthering their goals, right? So the entire community acts collectively for the purposes of ensuring that they survive in the long term, and everybody identifies in that way, while also looking at it on a biological level. This person is my father, or this person is my mother. I don't think there is an inherent intersection.
But the situation on Mars can be very critical at times too, right? So, for example, if a child has to choose between his father and his uncle, and it's better for the colony as a whole that the uncle survives instead of the father, but he chooses his father. So that was what I was thinking, right?
Bilkul.
So in that case, wouldn't it be better for the young generation, the next generation, to consider all members of the colony equally important and not have a preference for it?
Just because there is a family, it doesn't make it inherently preferential, right? Because we're teaching philosophy, like I told you in our curriculum, we want to make these people critical agents. That I have to make the best possible decision independent of whom it is. So whether or not you deny the structure of family, biologically and evolutionary, that instinct will exist. Whether or not you want to say the family structure exists or not, evolutionarily that will exist no matter what. But we have to make them philosophical agents so they can recognize that I must save.
Okay, so your solution is that we should have the family system, but instill the community values in our curriculum.
Bilkul.
In our curriculum,
Exactly.
that's what your solution is. Okay, what? Team 3.
We believe that the
Mike, upar.
we believe that the children should be initially born in.
On.
We believe that the children should be initially born.
करीब रखो.
We,
बटन ऊपर है ना बटन. हाँ बस ठीक है. We believe that.
we believe that the children should initially be. We believe that the children should initially be born in a pod and belong to the whole colony. There will be a proper system established for raising the kids. This will free a single couple of the burden and enhance the progress of the colony. Now I would like to hand over the mic to my friend.
Direct भी दे सकते हो पूरा.
I would like to answer the question, the solution presented by the team 2, that there should be a family system. Now, our team has, since the start of this debate, our team has not agreed with the idea of group identity. Are we forgetting that if we're introducing a family system, for example, there's a Khan family and there's a Riaz family. Now, isn't there going to be a sense of differentiality that's gonna be formed between them? Isn't the Khan family gonna think we're Khans, we're superior to the Riaz family? Isn't that a factor that's gonna be enhanced, and hence that's gonna lead to further conflicts and problems? We're forgetting that emotions are a fundamental nature of the human beings. We can, no matter how competent a person is, emotions will always be involved.
But that's not the case here. Here, the people are trained to think logically in a situation. So if you're saying, a Khan family and a Riaz family, so that won't matter in that crucial situation. So you're technically...
Only the parents are being trained. The children that are born, they're not trained for this.
The curriculum did
Yes,
this.
we will train them. Okay, we one by one we will go team 4, team 5, team 6 on the same issue.
I think at the end of the day, the children should belong to the community, because then they're going to develop a sense of group identity that they're the Martians. We want them to identify as Martians so that they will actually take the responsibility of that area and exploration. And also about group identity, at the end of the day, these pioneers are going to impart their wisdom to them. So this is not just some one training that's going to affect one generation. Always the generational knowledge is going to move forward. Thank you.
Team 5, please. What?
What I said before.
Okay, team 6.
The thing here we need to understand is every time we had the family problem, we didn't have proper awareness programs, or we didn't have access to education as a whole. Every time we were distinct in history, we didn't have these distinct members, such as the speaker stated, the Khan family and the other families. We didn't have these families have access to education. What we're putting up here is, before this problem properly initiates. We're going to have proper awareness programs. We're going to have subjects that teach you how this is going to work. We're going to have subjects that teach you a common nationality rather than having distinct features of a common group. We need to understand that back in the time when these things existed on Earth, the first mistake we made was not having every group have a proper connection to education system as a whole. When we're sending these people to Mars, we're agreeing with the fact that we're going to give them awareness programs. We're going to give them educational institutions from where they can learn how these things are inferior to why you're there. These distinct groups are inferior to the aim that you're there. The major aim of you is being a Martian and is to explore Mars and to give back the feedback to Earth to explore a new nation that doesn't make the same mistakes that we made on Earth. Considering the fact that we're going to give them proper education programs and proper allocation of education institutions, we agree with the fact that these things won't go wrong unless others supervise.
Yes, okay. Yes, please.
Also, what we need to realize is, as according to Friedrich Nietzsche, a man is a product of its community. And if we are on Mars creating a education system which put forwards a non-biased and non-political and a non-religious education system, what we need to realize is that there would be no family superiority or inferiority complexes, as the education would not include any of the superiority issues. Also, what we need to realize is that if we are breeding people in a family, then the family would have cultural diversity within itself, as the pioneers are to be chosen from different countries. And so it will lead to the offspring being a culturally diverse person and who would be open to all kinds of cultural diversities, as he would be seeing those cultural diversities within his home. And as his parents would be very rationalists, they wouldn't be looking forward to having extremist views inside their family. And so the offspring would be a product of a rationalist.
Let's talk about specifics here, right? So we are being too philosophical. So when a child is born, the main question is, when a child is born, should he or she be nurtured by his biological parents for the first few years, or should he be handed to the community at large to be cared for? So what is the better option in this?
Okay, so basically, if we're giving off the offspring to a community, the community has over 100 people, and so the community would have over cultural diversity, due to which the child would be having psychological problems as researched by different universities. So what we need to realize is that a biological parent provides more than enough for a child, and the child does not need to be handed over to a community, as he would be living in the community, so he would be absorbing from the community as well. But the main role would be of the parents to nurture that child and to grow him up into a rationalist.
Any counter arguments to this? Yes, please, team 3.
If the parents are being responsible of raising their kids, are we not burdenizing the parents, are we not burdenizing the parents by giving them responsibility of raising their kids? Our main priority is making the progress of the colony and establishing a colony over there. If the parents are going to be focused on raising their kids, who's gonna be working for the technical evolution that's gonna occur on Mars? Who's gonna be focusing on the medical progress that's gonna occur on Mars? So I believe that the responsibility of raising a child should belong to the whole community, as by doing this, jobs could be divided as who's going to be providing the foods for the kids, who's going to be bathing the kids, who's going to be teaching the kids specific stuff. So this would...
I think these menial tasks can be assigned to robots as well, if we are far enough into the future. Like
Also
bathing the kid or acting as a tutor for the kid. So that can be assigned to
robots. We talked
robots.
about AI being so advanced.
Yes.
So
Team 2, please.
So I think it should be the family in the first place, because the entire community, to answer their question, it's logically incoherent, and let me explain to you why. They say that somebody will do labor and that time of labor is now wasted. But somebody has to do that labor anyways, right? Even if it's the entire community, the amount of hours wasted is inherently the same. So whether it's the family or whether it's the entirety of the community, it is fundamentally irrelevant, because somebody will still be doing some kind of job at some point in time. The total amount of hours used up are the same, but it has to be the family, because why would you give your children to random people? First of all, from an evolutionary perspective, on an unconscious psychological level, the child is bonding with many, many people at a young age, and he doesn't know what to trust in terms of authority or who he is and why he is on a very primary and fundamental level. And that's why you have to give the child to his family, because he is attached to his mother and his parents.
Team number 1, do you have anything to add to this? Any point? Okay.
But I want to... I forgot what I was saying. So you're saying that you were giving the child, you shouldn't give the child to random people, but these aren't random people. These are the people who started a community on Mars together. So you're saying, oh, these are random people, and the parents should play the main role.
I'm saying in the initial phases of this child's life, they are random people. They can interact with them. I'm just saying, for the entirety of the time, they shouldn't be raised by other people. So they can interact
Why
with.
not?
Why not? Because evolution tells me so. If I'm not with my mother, if I'm not with my father, this isn't the optimal solution at all times. And continuously dividing this job has no utility, because if I make children, it is my responsibility to keep them as well.
Isn't it better that you're dividing the time between people instead of wasting one person's time continuously? For example, the mother's time, we'll put it in hours, 4 or 5 hours. Wouldn't it be distributed amongst many people?
Okay, first of all, as Mr. Shriar said, menial tasks can be handed over to robots. Number two, think about it mathematically. If a mother is spending 12 hours a day, those 12 hours are divided by other people. So inherently, 12 labor hours are lost, independent of who is doing them.
Yes, team 5, please.
Okay, so I want to answer the question of team 3. As they said that they should be, burdenized and everything. So in the first place, we are not going there these 100 people are not going there to survive and live for only 100 years. We have to make it our next home and our next world, and we have to, spread there, and we have to popularize and everything. So for that, we are eventually going to do that. We are eventually going to reproduce and everything. So it is a necessity to do that. So
Team 4.
You, team 2 mentioned how 12 hours are being lost anyway. So why do you think that dividing them up is useless? If a skill by one person, we're sending only 100 people there, so you're going to assume that each person has their own specialized skill. If one person is spending only 1 hour in the nurturing of the child, that's going to be a lot less than the 12 hours they would eventually have to use. So why do you think it's useless? It's not.
Team 2, please respond, and then Team 6, and then we can conclude this.
First of all, menial tasks can be taken up by robots. Number two, think about it mathematically. Just because you're a mother, you don't have to be taking care of your children at all times of the day. So if I'm not doing any menial tasks, I'm doing tasks that are essential to raising a child, and that's going to happen anyway. So I can still focus at some point in the day on doing the skills that are unique to me.
And historically, evolution has proven that the nuclear family is the best way to raise a child. So let's say the menial tasks are being taken over by robots, changing a diaper, giving the kid food. The effort of raising a child is best done by nuclear family. Look at statistics, right? African Americans, in African American hoods, the crime rate is generally higher. Why is that so? Not because African Americans are criminals, but because there is a high rate of single motherhood there. And because the child doesn't know who to interact with, the child does not have a strong male figure or authority in their life in the initial stages, they generally turn to a life of crime, which isn't always the case, but most cases, statistically, it's proven that this is.
But the difference there statistically is that's a neighborhood filled with drugs and violence. This is a colony on Mars filled with the world's intellects. How can you compare that with that?
Not necessarily. The principle still remains. The principle remains that a child in its initial stages only recognizes its mother. Science has proven that. Dr. Hudbay, Dr. Nair are here, and they can attest to this fact that the child only recognizes their mother or their father in their initial stages of their life, and all other people are literally random. Even if it's a very close knit community, the people are still random to that child.
But the child will have to be exposed to the community because you're building up a system. This is the first generation.
We don't disagree with you, but their brains at that point in time are not intellectually capable of determining
the community's brain has been molded.
Yes, but does this child know that this is Dr. Hudboy, this is Mr. Shariar?
But that comes in the terms of ethics.
You can't disagree with us.
There are not enough neurons, there are not enough circuits in his brain to determine who is whom.
Okay, so yes, we can all agree, I guess, that parents are important in the first few years of life, but also community bonding should also be encouraged for all of the next generation, right? So that is extremely important as well. Because if, for example, I was thinking that maybe we could do something, we could do this, that we could have all the babies gestate in an artificial unit, and then never tell it that who the biological parents were. But still, when they grow up, they will try to seek the answer, and they will try to figure out, and they will compare themselves with the adults of the colony and try to figure out who their biological mother and father were. That is something natural and that cannot be avoided. So to prevent those kinds of psychological problems down the road, I think some kind of bonding would be required, right? So finally, we can move over to Team 6 to give their opinion, and then we can move to the closing statements.
The only question I have is, how are you as a parent okay with giving your child to someone else, even considering the fact that they're specialized people and they're intellectual? How are you okay with giving your child to someone else from a different part of the globe? That isn't practically proven. Okay, they're specialized people and they're intellectual individuals that may have a proper sense of responsibility and essence of it. But as a mother, as a father, do you think it is practically okay and practically fine with a parent to giving up their child? We need to understand that these impractical acts would not only devastate the main aim, but also devastate the generations that were coming up for, and there may be a harm in how we're going to prove these generations to go along.
But see, we're expecting.
Yes, last up, bas karo.
What we need to realize is that if a child is being nurtured by his biological parents, that does not mean that the biological parents are gonna lock him up in a cage and he won't be exposed to the society. He would be exposed to the community. But if we give the child to the community, it will lead to the child having psychological effects, as the person monitoring him on evening would be possibly Russian, and the one monitoring him at night probably could be American, and so that would lead to being a mixture of so many culture diversities that it will lead to the child having psychological effects. And so it's not feasible that the child is not being nurtured by biological parents, because the people who are not biological parents and not even family, they do not have the same love for any child.
Okay, your point is well taken. Okay, so we will have a 2-3 minute break, and you can prepare your closing statements, and we will start with the closing statement. You can have water if you want. Water is over there. Okay, we only 3 minutes. Okay, so we are past the meat of the debate. Is it live? Live, right? Okay, so we will move on to the final phase of our discussion today, and that is the closing statements by all of the teams. Okay, so all of you will get 3 minutes each, just like the opening statement, and you can summarize the whole discussion and whether any of your opinions were changed during the course of the discussion, and go through all of the questions that we discussed one by one, and give us your final take on the issue.
On the first question, we debated that there should be a merit system, and that they should mainly be judged on their ethics and their educational background, education. On the second question, what was the second question? What was the second question?
The second question was, what would be the distribution of races?
Distribution of races.
On the second question, we figured that there should not be much racism, and there don't be that much distribution of races. On the third question, we thought we debate that there should be multiple religions for the astronauts' well-being. And the fifth question. On the first question, we debated that there should be on the first question, we debated that there should be multiple identities. On the sixth question, the current structure. On the sixth question, we debated that AI should be there should be a hierarchy, and AI should be at the top, while and there should be democracy below it. On the seventh question, we debated that there should be natural that the babies born on the Martian on Mars should be raised by their parents.
Okay, let's move on to team number 2.
Should I start?
Yes, you can start.
So, on account of the fact that we were the only team to answer all the questions while also recognizing the value of all the questions here. So, we talked about which countries will people be choosing. We talked to you about how there should be a diversity initially. But for the purposes of survival, you can't have absolute diversity. That's only possible in the short, medium, in the medium and the long term. On the distribution of races and the language of communication, we told you that you want to have a variety, that a larger variety is only possible in the future. Will the colony have a single religion? We told you how there should be no religion for the sovereign. will the leader be selected or appointed? We told you that he'll initially be selected and appointed in the future. On the question of group identity, we told you that categorization is inherently inevitable and that you want to promote positive characterization. On governance structure, regarding education, we told you how we want to create a philosophy-first educational structure, create philosophical agents on Mars, people of thought, people of logic, and people of character. Something unique that will happen because you want people to be able to think critically and dynamically in situations that are unique. On the existence of families, we told you that families should exist, and independent of whether they're born in the pod or not, the family, you don't want to fight biology. Because we were the only team that actually evidenced to you using past precedents, we precedents to you what frameworks we will use. We'll use the American Constitution as inspiration for the governance structure on Mars. We use the works of philosophers to prove to you why the family structure is so inherent to man. We told to you why social contracts will be formed inherently. To dispel the notion that we are discrediting any of these questions, no. I might disagree with some of these questions, but we have answered every single question to the nth possible extent and provided our opinion on it while also simultaneously proving to you why we might think these questions in some contexts aren't the most appropriate, but for ensuring the spirit of debate, we still did answer them. Because I stand on the side of David Hume, John Locke, and Michel Foucault, vote for our side.
Ladies and gentlemen, this debate continued for approximately 1.5 hours, and every one of the my fellow chief social architect here presented their own model for this debate. Many of the solutions I liked as well. They could be taken into consideration. For the closing statements, I would like to say that the first question was which country should the pioneers be chosen from. As I said before, our team believes that the countries with the most space experience should be chosen, as this is a one-shot mission. We cannot take any risk by taking all of the countries into consideration, as that would be costly as to perform the test on as well. We're trying to save up money here as well, as the countries are paying taxes. We do not want their taxes to be alleviated so much that the poor countries would burdenize from this. The burden should be kept as minimum as possible as we are progressing with this mission. The pioneers, the next question was that the pioneers should be loyal to the country or not. The pioneers should not be loyal to the country and should be loyal to the colony as a whole. The colony is a separate entity to the earth and would operate on its own law and its own curriculum and quota of everything. So the pioneers that are being sent to Mars should be loyal to the colony rather than their own countries, as this would promote group identity as well and would lead to conflicts. The races, there should be no racial discrimination, and the language should be a unanimous language that everyone should speak. There should be one language that everyone should speak in, which would be selected by a survey conducted among the 100 pioneers. The language that would be selected would be the one that the 100 pioneers would be most comfortable speaking in. The colony, in our team's opinion, the colony should have no religion at all, as religion leads to group identity and then discrimination. As we are avoiding the mistakes we made on Earth, we can see that in every state there's a racial discrimination, there's religion discrimination. Islamophobia is one of the biggest examples that there should be no religion. That we should not have any religion on Mars. The leader, in our team's opinion, should be selected, and he should be selected on the basis of several tests, and a curriculum should be set on the basis of which the leader would be selected in the initial phases of the colony. As the colony proceeds, the people over there should decide that. People over there should decide that what the curriculum should be for the selection of the leader. The group identity should be extremely discouraged, as this would create further problems. The governance structure of the colony, the education would be first focused on the ethics, medical, and the mechanical research and the space exploration. To compensate for natural accidental death, the babies over there should be born in a biological unit, therefore minimizing the burden on the parents, and the people over there would focus their work on the progress of the colony.
Okay, time is over. Okay, next team.
I think at the end of the day, we should recognize that we should not be making bold statements like something can never happen or that this will be the best fit. Because at the end of the day, when we, no matter how much we train, hypothesize, and theorize our lives on Mars, once we enter the society there and colonize it, a lot of us is going to be rendered useless, as it will be the first time we're going to live there. So we'll have to keep a flexible approach where we're ready to take on new concepts, build on our previous histories, and work towards a better society. A flexible approach is the answer. Thank you.
Next team number 5.
As we all venture beyond Earth, let us all remember that the colonization of Mars is not just a scientific milestone. It is a testament to our ability to adapt, innovate, and to thrive in the face of unknown. To conclude, team remarks regarding the question imposed, irrefutably, it was a fascinating session which clearly expanded our information regarding the topic colonization of Mars. But we still stand firm on our previous stances. I believe that there should be a selection. The selection of pioneers should involve individuals all around the world, and we should abrogate a racial prejudice as the Outer Space Treaty, which was signed in 1967. It clearly prohibits any state, any region, any race to claim any sovereignty over any celestial body. Space is for everyone, and it belongs to everyone. Loyalty to the country might not be a requirement for the pioneers because the colonization of Mars would be an international collaborative effort, and the main focus would be to work as one. The religion freedom should be on their Mars. We will make new language, and we can use the interpretation devices to avoid any kind of conflict there. The leadership structure should be based on merit and merit only, and the leader should be elected. The governing structure, I believe that there should be a flexible government on Mars on the initial stages because people will need in situ changes while carrying out the experiments. And it's a bit illogical that we cannot make the governing structure of Mars while we are still on Earth because we are unaware of some of the circumstances that may occur there. So as the society will grow, they will be able to establish a strong system there. About the internal matter of the colony should be governed internally because as the society will grow, they will be able to fulfill the needs of their inhabitants. And for the for the population, for the growth of population, I believe that individuals will have the right to choose what they wanted. Either they want biological units, either they want the natural process, and the child should be nourished by father and mother in the initial stages. And I believe that Mars has been flown by, orbited, smacked into, radar examined, rocketed into, bounced upon, shoveled, rolled over, drilled into, and yet to come, Mars being stepped on. If humanity doesn't land on Mars in my lifetime, I would be very disappointed. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Team number 6.
I'm Haroon Safir, and with the conclusion, I would like to answer a question why we're going to Mars. We're going to Mars to not make the mistakes that we made on Earth and exploited its basic resources. When we talk about resources, we have to program an initial plan of how we're going to send these pioneers. When it comes to selection, me as Haroon Safir and our team proposes double selection process. The one in which every country that pays the tax would be allowed to be a member of this specific committee that will be initiated, and then the UN itself, considering it's the one supervising this body, would choose 100 individuals that are capable enough of going. Secondly, we understand about if generation continues on Mars, we need to understand what subjects would be prioritized. Considering Mars environment is unknown to us, we shall have survival instinct based subjects prioritized over other subjects. Considering the fact that these individuals are endangered at any point in Mars, we have to understand that these specific subjects shall be supervised and shall be superiorized over other basic subjects. Next, we understand what the government structure would be. Considering the fact that these individuals are intellectual enough, we would put the basic democracy into them. But considering the fact that, as Team 2 said, the US Constitution is good enough to be placed again, which won't be possible because again, there's much criticism to US Constitution and other constitution as a whole. So if we're giving them the right to go and live into another planet, we have to give them the right to choose what they want, to choose who they want, to choose who they want to change. Next, we need to understand when we talk about languages, there shall be a special scrutinizing committee that shall decide what the common language is. We cannot just say that English is the most standard language that has been there for ages and we can put it again. We need to understand that these individuals can be part of different ethnicities. Thus, we need a special scrutinizing committee that would find a common language in between them. Next, we understand that the children that are going to be born there have to be taught, but they're going to be raised by their own parents. Considering I do not believe any individual parent would be okay with sending their child to be nourished by an individual in the morning and another individual in the evening, which won't be specifically possible. When we talk about these things, we talk about the economic resources we're putting into them, and we need steps and we need special critical measures. Lastly, we need to understand that the education system would be highly based and highly superiorized over the critical management skills of every individual and every new generation coming in, considering we're at Mars. Lastly, I would like to tell how there shall be no involvement of AI in the government structure, considering the fact that something that we're not known to, how can artificial intelligence be known to, of which we are the founders of? Thank you so much, and thank you so much for a professional debate.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for all of the participants. A great debate, very enjoyable, very enlightening discussion. Okay, so all of you can get seated over here and the judges will announce their results and we will call you forth. Thank you very much.
The judges have spoken. They have decided. I'll tell you the result in a moment, but let me say that I am not disappointed. I am very pleased, in fact, at the level of debate that we had over here on a subject that challenged the imagination. Here is a situation that humanity has never encountered before and which it will have to grapple with in the decades to come, in the next century, perhaps even in this century. And so there was a great deal of leeway in which how to interpret each of these questions that were posed to you. I will not try to give my answer to these questions because that would take too long. But let me just point out a couple of things. First of all, this team of 100 that will go from Earth will have to be highly specialized, highly competent, chosen from 8 billion people, which means that issues such as ethnicity and language and race and nationality will have to play a secondary role, because the most important thing will be for humans to be able to survive in that extremely difficult circumstance, the environment of Mars. And so the very first priority has to be excellence, survivability, suitability for the challenges up there. Having said that, it's also important to have diversity, and as was pointed out by one of the speakers, one of the participants, you need genetic diversity, because it is that which then leads to various traits being strongly expressed, and the better those traits are, the greater will be the chance that the subsequent generation will be even better than the first generation. Issues such as governance and group identity, I think, will be resolved in the second generation. The first generation may bring with them aspects of their culture. They will have been tutored in their mother tongue, but the second generation will be speaking only one language, and that will be the common language to all humans on Mars. I think some fascinating issues came about. In particular, how would this colony reproduce? Well, it cannot do that the way we humans structure our society here on Earth with the mamas and the chachas and the uncles and the aunts, because if you're going to choose 100 people to go to Mars, certainly they cannot be from the same family. They're not going to be genetically related. And the generation which comes after that will have forgotten most of most of the traits of their parents, except that which was physically passed on through the genes. It's also going to be very interesting to see how the concept of morality changes on Mars. You and I are the products of biological evolution. Something like 1 million years ago, we were living in caves and we learned that stealing from each other meant that the group survival was threatened. And so stealing was deemed to be a bad thing, an immoral thing. If you don't cooperate with your group, with your cave member, then your chances of survival are lessened. If you hurt somebody, that breaks the bonding between people, and that is called bad. It's called immoral to hurt people. My point is that the morality that we have derived on earth has come from our needs to survive. How this will pan out in Mars is going to be very, very interesting. Of course, you and I will not be there to see how that happens. But the whole idea of how reproduction takes place is not the one that exists today on earth. Today we have family structures, we have, you should dress that way, you should dress that way, there are restrictions on what couples can do or not do. All that is going to be completely, totally redefined in the Mars colony. So there are interesting times up ahead, and each of the speakers, all 12 of them, did a very good job. And so it was a hard task for us among the judges to decide who was the best, which was the best team. But we did agree, and we agreed unanimously. We didn't vote on this. We agreed unanimously that Muhammad Rahman Khattak was the best debater. That Iman Sayyid was the next best debater. And that the best team was number 5. So congratulations to all 12 of you for being so thoughtful, for focusing on the questions, for being articulate, for doing a very good job. Now, we are open to suggestions for what should be number 2. This was TBH High School Debate number 1. We look forward to having you and others too for number 2. But we would like suggestions from you, all of you, as to what would be something that will, make you think. Not the normal type of debate that you have in is democracy good or socialism good or this or that. No, those are all, so hackneyed. What we need is something that will engage the mind. And so please think of that, let us know, and thank you all for coming. Now we will have the award of the shields. So I would like to ask Dr. Abdul Hamid Nayyar and Dr. Ravish Nadeem. So, Muhammad Rahman Khattak, would you come up, please? Iman Sayed. And finally, team number 5, which is Abir Rizwan and Ramiz Qadir. नहीं. Thank you all, and particular thanks to the 12 members, and we'll have you again very soon, I hope. Send in your suggestions. Write to theblackhole.com, theblackhole.pk at gmail.com. And it's, and now we have the certificates. अब जिस तरतीब से देना है.
So first of all, Haroon Safir, you can come forward and receive yourself. Oh, yeah. Ayan Beg. ईमान सैयद. क्लैपिंग कर लें भाई, क्लैपिंग क्लैपिंग. ज़हरा हुसैन. अबीर रिजवान. एमल खानज़ादा. शाहजेब अदील. सरमद सादिक. सरमद सादिक. वो चलो बाद में इसको आज तो कर लेंगे. मोहम्मद रहमान खटक, द बेस्ट डिबेटर ऑफ द इवनिंग. Our young debater, Abdur Rahman Talha. And our other young debater, Sadan Talha. रमीज कदीर. सरमद नहीं है सरमद. Okay, that's all. So thank you all for coming and वो ऊपर है अभी उसको. Okay, Sarmad is here. Sarmad, you can come and receive your certificate. You went away just at the time we were distributing the certificates. Sarmad Sadeh, clapping everyone. Okay, thank you all. Thank you all.